Chapter 619. Song Jue knew about Ingwuji's ability. He could kill true Lake Realm ghost cultivators. It was impossible for such a powerful ghost cultivator to fail when dealing with a 5th-order Cloud River Realm cultivator. However, Ingwuji had escaped with serious injuries, which made Song Jue's originally confident plan disappear in an instant. How did Ingwuji get exposed? Song Jue really couldn't figure it out. But it was meaningless to think about it now. Ingwuji had escaped and could no longer be counted on. If he wanted to kill Lu Yi, he could only attack. In fact, Song Jue didn't want to do this because even if he killed Lu Yi, he wouldn't get many benefits in the end. At most, it would increase his fame and prestige. In the future, when the cultivators of Myriad Demon Ridge talked about Lu Yi, they would think that he died in an operation led by Song Jue. What use did fame and prestige have to him? Only practical resources were real benefits. The smile on Song Jue's face disappeared and his expression became serious. Only now did he realize that he seemed to have underestimated Lu Yi. Letting out a soft breath, Song Jue said, "My proposal just now, fellow Taoist Lu hasn't given an answer yet." "I refuse." The resolute answer fell into his ears and Song Jue nodded slightly. As expected, if Lu Yi really agreed to such a thing, he would be crazy. As Song Jue said before, even ants wanted to live, let alone cultivators. Then what is the deal that fellow Taoist Lu mentioned? The corner of Lu Ye's mouth rose slightly, showing a rare smile to a stranger, then raised his hand and waved gently. The space in front of him rippled and an object suddenly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Song Jue's eyes narrowed and many Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators looked at the object that suddenly appeared in astonishment. It was something that no cultivator was unfamiliar with, something that everyone had encountered countless times. A low voice came from the crowd, "The Heaven's Fate Pillar." There was actually a Heaven's Secret Pillar in a small spiritual land, and from the looks of it, it had been there for a long time, but it had always been concealed by a spirit array, so no one had noticed it. It was only now that Lu Yi had taken the initiative to reveal it to everyone. What was there to play with? With the Tianji Pillar, Lu Yi and the others could use the Tianji Pillar to return to the 9 prefectures at any time. Even if there were thousands or tens of thousands of them, what could they do? Unless they could stop those people before they came into contact with the Tianji Pillar, but at this moment, many of the Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators were still outside the range of the Spirit Land formation, so it was impossible for them to do such a thing. In other words, Lu Yi and the others could withdraw at any time. Song Jue finally came to his senses. No wonder Li Baxin and the others had been standing quietly behind Lu Yi without batting an eyelid. It turned out that they had something like this to rely on. At this moment, Song Jue felt that it was extremely laughable when he recalled his previous suggestions and words. His heart was filled with resentment. Previously, he had heard that Lu Yi had managed to summon a divine pillar from the hunting ground and managed to escape from the encirclement. Now, he had actually managed to summon another one from this spiritual land. This was something that was worth 100,000 merit points, while the vast majority of cultivators were still rushing about for tens of thousands of merit points. Lu Yi was able to invite the pillars of heavenly secrets one after another. He couldn't help but feel the same indignation as Xia Liang and Tan Xing. How rich was this dog? What made Song Jue feel even more resentful was that the person who had secretly leaked the information did not mention this matter at all. If he had known that there was a divine pillar in Lu Yi's spiritual land, he would have been more careful. He would have made sure to give Lu Yi a fatal blow before taking action, instead of leading hundreds of people to pressure him. This was Song Jue's misunderstanding. This time, the source of the information about Lu Yi's hiding place came from Tu Guanxiong of the Holy Eve spiritual land. Tu Guanxiong also did not know that there was a divine pillar here. Back then, Xia Liang had secretly mentioned this matter to Hua Liaoyuan, but Hua Liaoyuan relied on his death arena and did not care. In the end, Hua Liaoyuan died on the death arena and no one knew about this matter. The only people who knew about this matter were Xia Liang and Tan Xing, but the two had already made up their minds to let the people of the Myriad Devil Ridge force Lu Yi to give up the spiritual land, so they naturally would not publicize it. After seeing the divine pillar, the cultivators of the Myriad Devil Ridge, who were originally confident of victory, lost their fighting spirit, and all of them felt that this trip was boring. They were too far away and could not stop Lu Yi and the others before they came into contact with the divine pillar. The ghost cultivators who were originally hiding in the dark might have a chance, but after learning from their mistakes, how would those ghost cultivators dare to casually sneak into the spiritual land now? After the divine pillar was revealed, no one spoke for a full 10 breaths. In the end, it was Song Jue who broke the silence. The deal that fellow Taoist Lu mentioned, is it related to this item? Lu Yi did not directly answer. Instead, he said, "There are so many of you gathered here for my life. Perhaps I can give you a chance?" Behind him, Li Baxian frowned and suddenly felt that something was not right. Feng Yuechan also sensed it and turned to look at Li Baxian. Both of them felt that Lu Ye's actions today were a little strange, but they did not disturb him out of trust. However, they did not know what Lu Yi was planning. Only Giant Armor stood there motionless like a mountain, as if he did not care. His thoughts were simple. If there was a fight, he would rush to the front. If there was no fight, he would guard here. What do you mean? Song Jue did not understand. Very simple. Lu Yi looked at him. I will leave here, but you people of the Myriad Devil Ridge cannot break into my spiritual land. Little junior brother. Li Baxian immediately shouted. At this moment, he finally understood what Lu Yi was planning. He did not understand Lu Ye's actions. After all, escaping back to the 9 states was the safest choice. Why did little junior brother say such a thing? Lu Yi turned his back to him and said in a low voice, Senior brother, since I have been targeted by the people of the Myriad Devil Ridge, there is no way I can hide. Unless I stay in the 9 states and not enter the Cloudy River battlefield, there will be all kinds of people who want to kill me. Last time, there was Xia Liang and the others who somehow found this place. What about next time? No matter how well I hide, there will still be people who will come looking for me. Rather than hiding in one place, it is better to wander around. This way, it will be difficult for others to lock onto my position. As for safety, senior brother does not need to worry too much. There are indeed many people who are stronger than me on the Cloudy River battlefield, but there should not be many who are faster than me. Moreover, I am very familiar with being hunted. Since the Spirit Stream battlefield, those who have tried to kill me have not had a good ending. The last sentence made Li Baxian's heart ache. Thinking back to his little junior brother's various encounters on the Spirit Stream battlefield, he was indeed often in a situation where he was being hunted. I understand what you are saying, but we cannot do this. Little junior brother, let's retreat from the 9 states according to the plan. We can talk about other things in the future. Senior brother, blindly hiding will not solve the problem. Only a strong counterattack will make them afraid. Since they dare to target me, I will kill them. If I hide this time, there will be a next time, and a next time. Senior brother does not want to see me hide whenever I encounter trouble, right? Then I will go with you. Lu Yi shook his head. Senior brother, you can stay here and cultivate. Also, help me look after Giant Armor. With Giant Armor's personality, if no one restrains him, who knows what he will do. Moreover, it is more convenient for me to move alone. Li Baxian wanted to say something more, but Feng Yuechan gently tugged on his sleeve and said, Junior brother Lu, if you really do this, you will be in danger at all times. Are you confident? Anything depends on effort. In the air, Song Jue was stunned for a long time before he finally reacted. He asked in astonishment, This is the deal that fellow Taoist Lu mentioned? That's right. Song Jue frowned. He did not know what Lu Yi wanted to do. In the current situation, using the Heaven's Fate Pillar to return to the 9 states was the safest and most correct choice. However, he had proposed such a deal. This was undoubtedly a huge risk. At most, he would only be able to protect a spiritual land, but it would give the Myriad Demon Ridge an opportunity. However, the Myriad Demon Ridge had no reason to refuse such a deal. In fact, they would be happy to see it. Therefore, after pondering for a moment, Song Jue nodded. All right. No matter what the other party wanted to do, there was nothing wrong with agreeing. Do I need to swear a Heaven's Fate oath? Song Jue asked. This deal was too friendly to the Myriad Demon Ridge. It was so friendly that Song Jue would not feel at ease if he did not swear a heaven's fate oath. No need, Lu Yi indifferently said. As he spoke, he stepped to the side. Junior brother. Li Baxian still wanted to stop Lu Yi and grabbed his arm. Lu Yi looked at him with a smile. Senior brother, don't worry too much. There's no harm in experiencing more hardships. Their eyes met. Li Baxian saw the determination in Lu Ye's eyes. How could he not know that Lu Yi was right? After dodging this time, there would be a next time and a next time. He could not dodge in such a sorry state every time, but he was still worried. Even though Lu Yi was now able to stand on his own, the person in front of him was still the junior brother who needed his and Wei Yang's protection on the Golden Peak. After a long time, Li Baxian said, "Be careful." He also wanted to go with Lu Yi, but if he did, Feng Yuechan would definitely follow. At that time, giant armor could not be left behind. The four of them moving together was far less convenient than Lu Yi moving alone. I know. Lu Yi replied with a smile. Li Baxian let go of his arm. Lu Yi walked to the side and stood still. He circulated his spirit power and the lines of a large formation quickly lit up under his feet. Song Jue and the group of myriad demon ridge cultivators stared in confusion, not knowing what the formation was. Within the formation, Lu Yi looked up at Song Jue and said softly, "Remember my deal with you. If anyone dares to break into my spiritual land, I will return to the spirit stream battlefield and destroy their sect's encampment." Song Jue finally understood why Lu Yi did not need him to swear a heaven's fate oath. Although the heaven's fate oath had an absolute binding effect, Lu Ye's threat was not bad. With this sentence, before Lu Yi died, no one would dare to have any ideas about this spiritual land. Chapter 620. The lines in the array grew brighter and brighter, and the space around Lu Yi suddenly began to distort. Then he disappeared. This bizarre scene stunned everyone on the spot. Song Jue instinctively took a step forward, and the crowd behind him went into an uproar. In broad daylight, under the watchful eyes of so many people, a living person disappeared just like that. Moreover, it wasn't with the help of the Heaven's Fate Pillar. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, no one would have believed it. It's a transmission array. That's a transmission array. A voice suddenly shouted from the crowd. It was a formation cultivator. He had once seen the method of setting up a teleportation formation in an ancient book. He had been very interested in it and studied it for a period of time. However, he realized that with his talent in formations, he would never be able to set up such a complicated formation like the teleportation formation in his lifetime. The main reason was that it was too difficult to set up the void spirit veins, the core of the formation. Moreover, in the cultivation world of the 9 states, because of the Heaven's Fate Pillar, transmission arrays were not very useful. Therefore, after studying it for a while, he had no choice but to give up. However, he still recognized the lines of a transmission array. He couldn't believe that someone in the Cloud River realm could arrange a transmission array that he couldn't arrange in his lifetime. Lu Yi's attainments in the Tao of arrays were probably beyond everyone's imagination. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. Although they were shocked, they finally understood why Lu Yi disappeared into thin air. It was actually a transmission array. If there were Spirit Sea realm cultivators present, they might be able to perceive the fluctuations in space and detect the direction of Lu Ye's teleportation with their divine sense. However, a group of Cloud River realm cultivators didn't have such ability. Once Lu Ye's figure disappeared, they would no longer be able to track his whereabouts. Song Jue clenched his fists, his expression furious because he felt that he had been played by Lu Yi. The deal that Lu Yi proposed before was that he would leave the Spirit Land and give Myriad Demon Ridge a chance to kill him. In return, Myriad Demon Ridge would not destroy his Spirit Land. Otherwise, he would return to the Spirit Stream battlefield and destroy their sect's station. Song Jue thought that Lu Yi would fly out of the Spirit Land. In his mind, as long as Lu Yi dared to leave the Spirit Land, he could immediately chase after him. A 5th-order Cloud River realm cultivator couldn't escape from him. But now that Lu Yi had been teleported away, who knew where he had been teleported to? Just as Song Jue was fuming, the array cultivators spoke again. Senior brother Song, Wuxia shouldn't be far from here. His cultivation level isn't high, so the teleportation array he set up is limited. At most, it's 200 to 300 miles. Song Jue's expression changed. Are you sure? There's no mistake. The formation cultivator said decisively. Song Jue's eyes flashed with hope again. He immediately ordered, spread out and look for Louis. If you find him, whistle as a warning. A distance of 200 to 300 kilometers was nothing to cultivators at the Cloud River tier. Thus, even if they temporarily lost sight of him, they might still be able to find him if they spread out. Following his order, the hundreds of cultivators outside the spiritual land immediately scattered in all directions. The current situation was undoubtedly a heaven-sent opportunity for the myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators. All the cultivators here were at least at the 6th order, and all of them were confident that as long as they could find Wuxia, they would be able to kill him. Previously, under Song Jue's leadership, the bounty for killing Wuxia had to be divided equally with everyone. Now that they had the opportunity to monopolize the bounty, how could they miss it? Everyone was as excited as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Inside the Spirit Land, Li Baxian and Feng Yuechan watched the myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators leave with complicated expressions. They no longer paid any attention to them. Feng Yuechan took out the jade slip that controlled the many spirit arrays in the Spirit Land and revealed a look of realization. So junior brother Lu had this plan all along. The spirit arrays in the Spirit Land were arranged by Lu Yi, so the jade slip array had naturally been controlled by him. However, just yesterday, Lu Yi found Feng Yuechan and handed the jade slip array to her. He even returned the small umbrella spirit artifact that he had borrowed from her. At that time, Feng Yuechan didn't understand why Lu Yi handed the jade slip array to her, but now that she thought about it, Lu Yi had no intention of returning to the 9 provinces from the very beginning. Thinking about it, he had been cultivating here peacefully, but people had come to him time and time again to provoke him. Under such circumstances, how could he stay? Last time in the hunting ground, he was forced to return to the 9 provinces once. This time, he was unwilling to repeat the same mistake, so he left and prepared to fight with the myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators. Senior brother, since junior brother Lu did this, he must have a plan. Feng Yuechan turned to Li Baxian and comforted him. Li Baxian sighed. In the end, he was useless. If he had a Cloud River Realm 9th Order cultivation, he would have killed as many people as came today. His junior brother wouldn't have to be so aggrieved. He turned to look at Giant Armor. He thought that Giant Armor would be restless after Lu Yi left and might even chase after him. Who knew that this guy just stood there quietly, as if nothing had happened? Then, the Giant Armor turned around and walked into its wooden hut to cultivate. Lu Yi looked for him yesterday and told him to stay here and wait. Just like when Lu Yi told him to wait in place, he ended up waiting for 2 months. Since Lu Yi told him to continue waiting, then he would just wait. There was no need to think too much. He would do whatever Lu Yi told him to do. Cultivate, Li Baxian said. Little junior brother took a huge risk to protect this grade A spirit land. Of course, he had his own considerations, but it was also because he wanted to leave a good cultivation environment for them. Little junior brother had left, so he couldn't help much. The only thing he could do was cultivate hard and improve his cultivation as soon as possible. If he encountered such a situation again one day, he would not be as powerless as he was today. Feng Yuechan activated the Jade Slip Array, activating the protective and concealing spirit arrays in the Spirit Land. Soon, the vast Spirit Land disappeared. In a cave more than 200 kilometers away from returning Sky Spirit Land, Lu Ye's figure suddenly appeared. Although he was more than 200 kilometers away with the help of the transmission array, this location was not safe. The people of Myriad Demon Ridge would definitely spread out to search for him, so there was only one thing he needed to do right now, and that was to get as far away from returning Sky Valley as possible. It would be best if he left Great Mang Mountain. This was actually not too difficult for him. He had concealment and aura concealment spirit runes. Although he was a weapon cultivator, he also had the means of a ghost cultivator. Although there were many people in Myriad Demon Ridge, it would not be easy to find him. Walking out of the cave, Lu Yi was about to set off, but he was stunned. Not far in front of him, a pale guy with a weak aura and a black cat mask turned his head and looked in his direction. Their eyes met, and Lu Yi raised his hand and pressed the hilt of the mountain coiling saber with a playful expression. Wasn't this the ghost cultivator who had approached 20 meters from him just now? In such a short time, this person had actually come here and coincidentally bumped into him. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. Lu Yi did not know the name of this ghost cultivator or where he came from, but he knew that the other party was a ninth-order cultivator. Under the black cat mask, Ingwuji showed a pleasantly surprised expression. He did not understand why Lu Yi would appear here, and for a moment he thought that the other party only looked similar to Lu Yi. However, the amber crouching on Lu Yi's shoulder was undoubtedly an eye-catching mark. It did not make sense for someone to look like Lu Yi and bring along an identical little beast. This guy is Lu Yi. No matter why the other party suddenly appeared here, for Ingwuji, he was a big fish that had delivered itself to his door. The two sides only exchanged glances for a short moment before they both moved. The two figures stirred up 2 gusts of wind and collided with a loud bang. 2 short blades appeared in Ingwuji's hands at some point. The short blades were only 3 inches longer than the dagger and were completely black. They looked similar to the mountain coiling saber. However, the mountain coiling saber's appearance was caused by the woman who called herself Grandmaster Yu when it was being upgraded. The color of the short blades in Ingwuji's hands was deliberately made. He was a ghost cultivator and needed to be silent when attacking, so the black short blades would undoubtedly reduce the risk of being exposed. One of the short blades blocked Lu Ye's mountain coiling saber while the other went straight for Lu Ye's throat. The difference in cultivation was more than 4 minor realms. Ingwuji did not understand where Lu Yi got the courage to take the initiative to attack him, but he could almost foresee the scene of his opponent being killed in one blow. If he knew that Huoliao Yuan was thinking the same before he died, he would not be so relaxed. Under the sudden attack of an irresistible force, Ingwuji's expression immediately changed under the black cat mask. At this moment, he felt that he was not facing a 5th-order cultivator at all, but a master who was on par with him. Ingwuji could not help but lean back, and the short blade stabbing at Lu Ye's throat also lost its aim. He quickly stabilized his body, but Lu Ye's second blade had already landed. When cultivators fought, especially in this kind of close combat, there were often situations where one careless move could lead to a complete loss. At this moment, Ingwuji paid the price for his carelessness. When the second strike landed, the force behind it was even heavier than the first strike. Endless Shadow's arm that was holding the dagger felt numb. His body leaned back again, and this time he even took a few steps back. Then came the third, the fourth, ding-ding-dang-dang-dang sounds rang out, and with each sound, Ingwuji had to take a few steps back. Originally, he was only using 1 short blade to block, but now he was using 2. His arm went numb, and the web between his thumb and forefinger cracked. Ingwuji's heart sank to the bottom. If he was at his peak, he would not be in such a sorry state, but when he sneaked into the spirit land, he was injured by several explosion arrays and was forced to use a secret technique to escape. Now, he could not even say that he was an arrow at the end of its flight. He could not even display half of his peak strength. But even if he only had half of his strength, it should be more than enough to deal with a 5th-order cultivator. But, was this the strength of a 5th-order cultivator? Chapter 621. In a hurry, after exchanging 5 blows, Ingwuji's entire body was already cold. At this moment, his body leaned back uncontrollably, leaving his chest wide open. In his field of vision, a long saber stabbed straight at him. He couldn't dodge it. He couldn't dodge it. The injuries he had suffered in Hudian Valley and the price he had to pay for activating the secret technique had slowed his reaction speed a lot, so he had no power to resist this blow. When they first exchanged blows, Ingwuji was shocked by the strength Lu Yi had displayed and felt that he could fight evenly with him. But in just 2 short breaths, what he thought was an even match had turned into a complete one-sided crush. He madly urged his protective spirit chi and watched helplessly as the long saber stabbed into his chest. A flash of light erupted from the pitch-black saber, and a complex and mysterious pattern flashed across it. Double-edged spirit inscriptions. His already disordered spiritual energy was unable to provide him with much protection in a hurry. Under this strike, he was able to his protective spirit chi was directly broken, and the mountain saber stabbed into Ingwuji's chest. Lu Yi raised his eyebrows. The moment the saber stabbed into the other party's body, he felt that there seemed to be something blocking the saber's advance on his chest, and there was even a light tinkling sound. This black cat-faced ghost cultivator was wearing a treasure similar to a heart-protecting mirror. Pooh! Using the force of the impact, Ingwuji's figure was forced back, and he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. This was not because he was injured by Lu Yi, but because he was already injured. Quickly pulling back a few feet, Ingwuji no longer had any thoughts about Lu Yi and turned around. He flew into the air. Lu Yi had already caught up, but after taking a step, he saw Ingwuji's body wrapped in a layer of blood-red mist, as if his blood was boiling and evaporating. He directly turned into a red light and flew away. His speed was so fast that even Lu Yi couldn't catch up with him. This secret technique again. When he was in Hutian Valley, this ghost cultivator had used this secret technique to escape, and he had used it again in such a short time. No matter what this secret technique was, just from the signs when it was activated, it was clear that it was not a simple secret technique. Once it was activated, there would be a great backlash. Lu Yi did not chase after this person. Although he felt that if he did, there was a high chance that he could kill this person, he was now the one being hunted. He had just been transported out of the Return to Heaven Spirit Land, so what he needed to do now was to quickly hide. Currently, there were only two choices in front of Lu Yi. One was to go deep into the Taimong Mountains, and the other was to leave the Taimong Mountains. This place could be considered as the deepest part of the Taimong Mountains. However, due to the wolf pack's frequent hunting, there were generally no demonic beasts living near the spiritual land. If one continued to venture deeper into the Taimong Mountains, it would be very easy to encounter some powerful demonic beasts. Of course, there wouldn't be any overlord-level demonic beasts like the berserk giant ape. But to cultivators, some powerful bird-type demonic beasts were often more dangerous than the berserk giant ape. If he left the Taimong Mountains, there was no need to worry about encountering any demonic beasts. At that time, he would have to face a large number of myriad demons ridge cultivators. Although there were only a few hundred people besieging the Spirit Land this time, that was because the cultivators who were not strong enough could not go deep into the Spirit Land. Those hundreds of people were basically all sixth-order cultivators and above. Now that they heard the news, there were more than a few hundred myriad demons ridge cultivators rushing to the periphery of the Taimong Mountains. There were probably thousands of them, and as time passed, the number would only increase. It seemed like there were two choices, but in fact, there was only one in front of Lu Yi. He did not hesitate to take the risk of leaving the Spirit Land and not using the Heaven's Fate Pillar to return to the 9 states. It was not to hide from the myriad demons ridge cultivators. In the Spirit Stream battlefield, he was hunted by all kinds of people, but when his strength reached a certain level, he dominated the entire battlefield. Many myriad demons ridge sects trembled in front of him. The current him was far from having the strength to dominate the Cloud River battlefield, but strength was something that could only be accumulated bit by bit. Moreover, the situation in the Cloud River battlefield was different from the Spirit Stream battlefield. There were no sects here, and if someone provoked him in the Spirit Stream battlefield, the monk could run, but the temple could not. The Cloud River battlefield was different. Even if someone provoked him, they were not his opponent now, and if they wanted to take revenge in the future, they might not be able to find the person. Therefore, in the Cloud River battlefield, revenge had to be done as soon as possible, preferably not overnight. Without hesitation, Lu Yi immediately rushed towards the periphery of the Taimong Mountains. After the time it would take to drink a cup of tea, several streams of light flashed across the sky. The person in the lead was Song Jue from Abyss Rainbow Hall. The people beside him were his junior brothers and junior sisters. They had been hiding in the crowd, secretly agreeing with his words and adding fuel to the fire. Now that their plan to join forces with Ingwuji to kill Lu Yi had failed, Lu Yi had used the transmission array to escape the Spirit Land. The hundreds of myriad demons ridge cultivators had spread out to search for him, so there was no need for them to hide. If they joined forces, as long as they could find Lu Ye's whereabouts, taking him down would be as easy as crushing a conch. At this moment, the few of them were rushing nearby. They did not fly high, and as they flew, they seemed to be searching for something. "Senior brother, over there." Suddenly, an 8th Order cultivator pointed somewhere below. Song Jue looked over and immediately led the others to descend. Not far in front of them, a man wearing a black cat mask was leaning against a big rock, his head drooping, motionless. His clothes were stained red with blood, as if he had been soaked in it. Strangely, there were no particularly obvious external injuries on his body. This person was naturally Ingwu, but unlike when he appeared in the Spirit Land and when he appeared in front of Lu Yi just now, the current Ingwu seemed to have lost a lot of weight. In such a short period of time, he had used his secret technique to escape twice. This was the price he had to pay. And these so-called secret techniques were not easily used. If Ingwu foundation was not strong enough, he might have really died. "Is he dead?" A 7th Order female cultivator asked softly. Anyone who saw Ingwu like this would think he was dead. His drooping head suddenly lifted and his hands moved as Ingwu struggled to speak. "Don't speak nonsense. Cough, cough." Ingwu coughed violently and blood flowed out from the corners of his mouth. Song Jue frowned. "How did you end up like this?" Even if Ingwu had been injured by the spirit array arranged by Lu Yi in the Spirit Land, even if he had used his secret technique, he should not have been so weak. He finally understood why Ingwu had suddenly sent him a message and called him over. In this state, if no one came to protect him, any random demonic beast would be able to kill Ingwu without a doubt. Ingwu was calling for help. Ingwu called out. "What?" Song Jue was startled and suddenly reacted. "You met Lu Yi? Where is he?" Ingwu raised his hand with great effort and pointed in a direction, 40 miles away. After he finished speaking, his raised hand fell to the ground. He really didn't have any strength left. With this kind of injury, he wouldn't be able to recover without half a month to a month of rest. To a powerful ghost cultivator like him, who had even killed a true lake stage cultivator, his current state was simply too unsightly. It filled his heart with humiliation. Song Jue immediately flew up and hurriedly rushed in the direction Ingwu had pointed while calling out, "Junior brother Lu, stay here and take care of him." Ingwu weak voice rang out in his ear, "Don't be careless, he's very strong." Song Jue pretended not to hear. Lu Yi was just a 5th Order, how could he be stronger than him? The most important thing now was to find his whereabouts. Song Jue and the others quickly left, leaving behind a bearded man. It was junior brother Lu. After all, Ingwu was a cultivator from Sen Luo Temple, a sect from the War Province. Sen Luo Temple and Abyss Rainbow Temple had always been close, so Song Jue naturally would not ignore the other party's life or death. Junior brother Lu was a 7th Order cultivator, so it would not be a problem for him to take care of the injured Ingwu. Following the direction Ingwu had pointed out, Song Jue led his junior brothers and junior sisters all the way and soon arrived at the cave where Lu Yi and Song Jue had fought. After carefully examining it, they confirmed that there were indeed traces of a fight here, but there were not many, so it was obvious that the fight had not been going on for long. After exploring the cave again, they found a hidden spirit array. Even if they knew nothing about spirit arrays, they were certain that this was a transmission array left behind by Lu Yi. The other party had used this transmission array to directly teleport here from returning Heaven Valley. There were not many useful clues. Although they were certain that Ingwu had met Lu Yi here, it was difficult to determine where he was now. With no other choice, they could only continue to search. Under the leadership of Song Jue from Abyss Rainbow Temple, hundreds of cultivators from Myriad Demon Ridge had forcibly suppressed Lu Yi's Spirit Land. There was actually a pillar of heaven's secrets in the Spirit Land. Originally, Lu Yi had the opportunity to use the pillar of heaven's secrets to directly return to the 9 regions, but he made a surprising decision. He left his Spirit Land through the transmission array and declared that if anyone dared to break into his Spirit Land, He would return to the Spirit Stream battlefield and destroy the other party's sect station. No one knew why Lu Yi would make such an irrational move, but this undoubtedly gave the cultivators of Myriad Demon Ridge great hope. Lu Yi was currently hiding somewhere in the Taimang Mountains. Whoever could find him would have a chance of obtaining the huge reward. Through the continuous spread of the battlefield imprints of the cultivators, countless cultivators of Myriad Demon Ridge received this news in just a short day. Especially those cultivators of Myriad Demon Ridge who were in the Taimang Mountains and had not been able to reach Returning Heaven Valley. Their cultivation and strength were insufficient, so they could not go deeper into the Taimang Mountains. They had thought that this trip would be in vain, but the situation had taken a turn for the worse and brought them hope. Suddenly, they were full of energy and began to search around. However, for the entire day, none of the tens of millions of Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators in the Taimang Mountains had found a trace of Lu Yi. No one knew where he was hiding. Chapter 622. Night fell and darkness enveloped the sky. A new moon rose and the stars twinkled in the sky. In a mountain wilderness about 500 kilometers away from Returning Heaven Valley, several cultivators were besieging a blue-eyed porcupine. Even though the Taimang Mountains were filled with danger, there were many fortuitous encounters hidden within it. There were rare demon beasts, rare medicinal herbs, and many minerals that were difficult to find outside. All of these fortuitous encounters were extremely attractive to cultivators. Cultivators were a group of people who liked to pursue profits. Because cultivation required a lot of resources, the monthly salary that each sect gave to their disciples was not enough to meet the needs of the cultivators. This was the case for both large and small sections. It was not that the sects were stingy, but they used this method to encourage their disciples to obtain more cultivation resources through their own means. At the same time, they used this method to sharpen their disciples. Otherwise, if one only knew how to cultivate and did not know how to fight, no matter how high one's cultivation was, it would only be an empty shell. Only Lu Yi could take cultivation resources from his sect's treasury without any restrictions. The large amount of resources in the sect's treasury were all plundered by him from Myriad Demon's Ridge and belonged to him. Although Shui Yuan was nominally in charge of the distribution of the sect's resources, how could she make things difficult for him over such a trivial matter? Before Lu Yi, although the Blue Blood sect could not be said to be poor, it did not have many resources. Shui Yuan's cultivation was even affected. Otherwise, with her aptitude, she could have broken through to the Spirit Sea realm long ago. Why would she have delayed until last year? Now, the Blue Blood sect had accumulated an incalculable amount of resources in the sect's treasury due to Lu Ye's various actions. In the Great Mang Mountains, blue-eyed porcupines were a very common monster beast. They could be found everywhere in the Great Mang Mountains. Although they were common, they were very valuable monster beasts. Their skin and flesh were extremely tender and had a certain effect on body tempering. If eaten over a long period of time, it could improve one's vitality. Not to mention, monster generals had monster cores in their bodies. The stronger the blue-eyed porcupine, the more valuable it was. Several Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators were dealing with this blue-eyed porcupine. Judging from its monster chi fluctuations, it was a monster general comparable to an 8th Order Cloud River Realm cultivator. Several cultivators at the 6th or 7th Order cooperated with each other, with the strong body cultivator attracting the blue-eyed porcupine's attention, while the remaining armament cultivators, Dharma cultivators, and ghost cultivators waited for an opportunity to attack. The situation was under their control. The battle had been going on for quite some time. The blue-eyed porcupine's body was covered in wounds, and its body was dyed red with blood. Its throat constantly emitted low growls, but it was still a trapped beast. Every time it tried to break out of the encirclement and escape, it would be beaten back by a violent attack. If nothing unexpected happened, it wouldn't take long for them to take down this demonic beast. Their search for Lu Yi was fruitless. Since they encountered a monster beast with decent value, they decided to take it down. This kind of thing didn't just happen to these Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators. Looking at the current Taimang Mountains, similar scenes could be seen everywhere. The few of them were concentrating on dealing with the demonic beasts in front of them. No one would have thought that in the darkness, a figure was quietly approaching them. It wasn't until a strange sound was heard, accompanied by a short scream, that they were shocked. Turning their heads to look, they saw the armament cultivator in the group kneeling on the ground with his hand covering his chest. Behind the armament cultivator, a figure had appeared out of nowhere and was pulling out a long saber from the armament cultivator's body. When everyone turned their heads, that person pounced towards the spell cultivator at the side at lightning speed. His speed was extremely fast. The Dharma cultivator was in the middle of casting a spell. Seeing the scene, he panicked and hurriedly stopped casting his spell. His figure quickly retreated while madly urging his body protecting spirit energy. In the blink of an eye, a figure appeared in front of the Dharma cultivator. The strong sense of oppression made it difficult for the Dharma cultivator to breathe. He instinctively urged his spirit energy, and at the same time, a huge repulsive force swept out in all directions. However, the figure that suddenly appeared in front of him suddenly disappeared. At the same time, he caught a glimpse of a flash of saber light from the side. The Dharma cultivator's body-protecting spirit energy only lasted for less than 2 breaths before it completely shattered. The last thing he felt was a trace of insignificant pain spreading through his body. But soon, the pain became extremely clear and intense, causing him to scream. The bright saber light flashed past, and the scream came to an abrupt end. Lu Yi! A cry of alarm rang out. It was the ghost cultivator who shouted. His heart was filled with horror. In just 2 breaths of time, 2 of the team of 4 had died. His heart was filled with grief and confusion. Wasn't Lu Yi a armament cultivator? But looking at the method he used just now, it was clearly something only a ghost cultivator could use. Did he also cultivate a ghost cultivator sect? He had never heard of such a thing. Despite his surprise and horror, he still instinctively rushed towards Lu Yi to kill him. After all, he was a 7th-order cultivator, while Lu Yi was only a 5th-order cultivator. The other party was able to kill his companions by relying on a sneak attack. Now that his figure had been exposed, there was no reason for him to miss it. As long as he killed Lu Yi, how could a trivial blue-eye porcupine compare to the bounty he would receive? It would be countless blue-eye porcupines. He seemed to be able to see the scene of him soaring in the future with the huge bounty on his head. However, after 3 breaths of time, the excitement in his heart was completely replaced by deep horror. As the spirit artifacts collided, sparks flew everywhere. The 7th-order ghost cultivator stumbled back with a look of disbelief on his face. In a head-on confrontation, he was completely suppressed by a 5th-order armament cultivator. It wasn't just suppression, it was simply crushing. The strength, speed, and adaptability of the other party's attacks far exceeded his own. After 5 breaths of time, the ghost cultivator's arms were completely numb, and his spirit chi was extremely scattered from the collision. After another 2 breaths, a head flew up and a headless corpse fell to the ground. Lu Yi immediately turned around and charged towards the body cultivator. The body cultivator's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He was not only heartbroken over the death of his companions, but also horrified by the powerful strength displayed by Lu. A 5th-order cultivator had killed 3 of his companions in a short period of time. If it hadn't happened right under his nose, he wouldn't have believed it. When Lu Yi killed the 2nd spirit cultivator, the body cultivator wanted to help, but the injured blue-eyed porcupine seemed to have gone crazy. It charged at him again and again, and the body cultivator couldn't escape at all. A monster general comparable to an 8th-order Cloud River Realm cultivator could be easily defeated by the 4 of them working together, but if he was alone, he could barely contend against it. If he left it alone, the body cultivator was sure that the blue-eyed porcupine's fangs would make a few holes in his body. Seeing his 3rd ghost cultivator companion die under Lu Yi's blade, the body cultivator realized that he was in big trouble this time. When Lu Yi joined the attack, the 7th-order body cultivator's death was already destined. The blue-eyed porcupine seemed to know that Lu Yi wasn't an enemy. Its scarlet eyes only focused on the body cultivator, ignoring Lu. The moment his spirit chi protection collapsed, The body cultivator let the blue-eyed porcupine pierce 2 holes in his waist and abdomen. The spirit artifact shield in his hand blocked Lu Yi's slash. Then, he pushed his spirit chi and let out a long howl. Song Jue had said before that if he found any trace of Lu Yi, he would let out a long howl to warn him. At the last moment of his life, he finally remembered this. Of course, he wouldn't have a good end, but he definitely wouldn't let Lu Yi have it easy either. The howl stopped when the mountain coiling saber slashed down. Lu Yi didn't even have time to collect his spoils of war. He plunged into the night and quickly disappeared. The blue-eyed porcupine, covered in blood, also rushed in another direction and fled. A short while later, a team rushed over after hearing the howl. All they saw were 4 corpses lying on the ground. The battlefield was a mess, and the thick smell of blood assailed their nostrils. In another location, 3 cultivators had just experienced a battle of hunting demonic beasts, and they were meditating and adjusting their breathing. Among the 3, one of them cultivated the Tao of spirit arrays as well. Before meditating, he had set up a few simple warning arrays nearby. If a monster beast approached, the array would warn them. This was also the reason why the 3 of them dared to meditate together with peace of mind. However, when Lu Yi lurked here, those simple warning arrays didn't work at all. He was a formation cultivator himself, so his attainments in the Tao of spirit arrays were much higher than the magic cultivators. Even if he didn't activate his clear vision spirit patterns, he could still see some traces of array formations with his naked eye. In his field of vision, the other party's array formations weren't refined at all. Approaching the target, suddenly launching an attack, the battle erupting abruptly and ending quickly, a dozen breaths later, when Lu Yi collected his spoils of war and left, only 3 corpses remained on the ground. A strange floral fragrance wafted through the air. Some cultivators followed the fragrance and found this place. They immediately saw a purple flower growing between the cracks of the rocks. The peanut had 5 petals, and each petal had some strange patterns. At first glance, it looked as if there was an open eye growing on it. Although the cultivator attracted by the flower wasn't proficient in medicinal theory, as a qualified cultivator, he still had the eyesight to distinguish some heavenly treasures. He could tell at a glance that this purple flower was a rare medicinal herb. After saying a few words to his companion, he excitedly took out his tools to collect the purple flower. But the moment he stretched out his hand, a pitch-black saber suddenly attacked from the side. The cultivator didn't even have time to react before the saber pierced through his waist and into his heart. The saber was pulled out, bringing with it a spray of blood. His companion instinctively counterattacked in a scream, but what greeted him was a storm of saber lights. A figure flashed through the air, the spirit energy fluctuations around him revealing that he was an 8th-order cultivator. Even though it was already late, he didn't give up on searching for Lu Ye's whereabouts. He knew that the longer he waited, the more difficult it would be to find Lu Yi. At the same time, he had to guard against the other experts of the myriad demon ridge. His powerful 8th-order cultivation was the source of his confidence in acting alone. Some people had invited him to accompany them before, but he had rejected them all. How could sharing the benefits with others compare to taking the bounty alone? To be continued. Chapter 623. Because he was searching for Lu Yi, this 8th-order cultivator didn't fly too high, only about 400 meters above the ground. This was a very clever height, allowing him to see the situation on the ground while also ensuring that he had enough time to react if he was attacked. From this point alone, this person was an experienced cultivator. As he flew over a certain area, he suddenly sensed a weak spirit energy fluctuation from below. If he hadn't been extremely focused, he would have missed this anomaly. He immediately looked in that direction and saw a figure quickly shuttling through the woods like a startled bird. Even though it was night, the other party's figure was clearly imprinted in his eyes. Lu Yi. The cultivator was overjoyed. He didn't expect to actually find Lu Ye's trace. Sighing at his good fortune, he quickly chased forward and arrived in front of Lu Yi in the blink of an eye. Then he descended from the sky, holding a machete in his hand. Pushing his spirit energy, he slashed at Lu Yi like an eagle swooping down on its prey. With a bang, Lu Yi, who was running away, was pressed down by a strong force. The spirit energies of the two spirit artifacts collided and exploded. Under the shock wave, the two were suddenly separated. Lu Yi stood on the ground and slid back several dozen meters, leaving two deep marks in the ground. On the other hand, his opponent flipped over and landed lightly. In this confrontation, it seemed that Lu Yi was at a disadvantage, but the strength he erupted in an instant caused his opponent's brow to twitch. Lu Ye's spirit energy fluctuations were indeed fifth order, but the strength he showed was far more than that. However, this person didn't care too much. Lu Yi was famous and could kill enemies above his realm, so it wasn't surprising for him to have such a performance. But in the end, he was trapped here. Just as he was thinking this, a figure emerged from the ground behind him like a ghost. Lu Yi sometimes thought that he had actually chosen the wrong sect. If she had chosen a ghost cultivator, she would have been able to display more potential than any other ghost cultivator. Unfortunately, when he joined Blue Blood sect, there were only two people in the sect. One was Shui Yuan, and the other was the sect master. He had once studied medicine under Shui Yuan, but she realized that she had no talent in this area. She could only follow the sect master to cultivate spells. She was extremely talented in the Tao of spell arts. No matter how profound the spell arts were, she could quickly grasp them. Moreover, because she was a spirit, there weren't many restrictions when she cast spell arts. She could cast all kinds of spell arts. Aside from lightning spells, perhaps it was because of her spiritual body, but Yi was very afraid of lightning-type spells, let alone cultivating them herself. No matter what, since Yi had embarked on the path of Dharma cultivation and had outstanding talent, it was no longer appropriate for her to switch to another sect. She could only wait until she was stronger in the future to consider cultivating in the ghostly cultivation sect. Even though she had never come into contact with the Tao of ghost cultivators, as a spirit body, she was born with some advantages that ghost cultivators couldn't reach. At this moment, she silently appeared behind the enemy, and the enemy did not notice at all. It wasn't until Yi summoned the 9-spirit array diagram that the 8th order weapon cultivator was startled. However, before he could investigate what kind of danger was behind him, his vision blurred and he suddenly appeared in a stone forest. Find a place to hide, Lu Yi ordered before rushing into the 9-spirit array diagram. Time passed by, and after the time it would take to drink a cup of tea, Yi shook the 9-spirit array diagram and Lu Ye's figure appeared. There were a few more wounds on his body, but they weren't serious, just flesh wounds. At his feet was the corpse of the 8th order weapon cultivator. Comparatively speaking, this person had many injuries on his body. His clothes were almost dyed red with blood. Even though he had lost all vitality, his eyes were still wide open, as if he had died with a grievance. He had indeed died with his eyes wide open. Against Lu Yi, the two were evenly matched at first, but since they were inside the 9-spirit array diagram, Yi could naturally interfere slightly. With her secret cooperation, how could this 8th order weapon cultivator be Lu Ye's opponent? In the end, he was hacked to death by Lu Yi. "Let's go!" Lu Yi called out and picked a direction at random. It was almost dawn, and after hunting for an entire night, he had consumed a lot of energy and needed to rest. Half an hour later, in a concealment array, Lu Yi sat cross-legged and swallowed a spirit pill to restore himself. When he returned from Fox Immortal Valley, Lu Yi felt that he had the ability to fight against an 8th order cultivator, but he hadn't had the chance to verify it until just now, when he finally found a lone 8th order weapon cultivator. After fighting with each other, he confirmed his conjecture. Under normal conditions, he did have the ability to fight against an 8th order cultivator. Even without Yi's secret help, Lu Yi was confident he could kill the other party. This undoubtedly meant that he now had the ability to kill enemies 3 minor realms above him. Before, he could only fight against enemies 2 minor realms above him at most. The opportunity he obtained in Fox Immortal Valley played a huge part in this change. The baptism bestowed by Heaven's secret sect allowed him, Li Baxian, and the others to greatly increase their strength. And this was only under normal conditions. If he could activate his beast transformation secret technique, his strength would increase greatly. Perhaps he could even fight against a ninth-order cultivator? Lu Yi couldn't be sure about this. Although he had killed a ninth-order cultivator in a one-on-one fight, he had relied on his talent tree to isolate the flames in the battle with Huo Liao Yuan. It could be said that he had exhausted Huo Liao Yuan to death. That was a special case, so he couldn't be sure. However, the activation of the beast transformation secret technique required a long time of preparation and resonance. So far, Lu Yi had only activated it once. In any case, the current him could be said to be a member of the Cloud River realm. He was no longer a weakling who could be bullied by anyone when he first entered the Cloud River battlefield. This was also why he dared to leave the Spirit Land. Anyone who dared to underestimate him because of his cultivation would inevitably pay a heavy price. None of the myriad Demon Ridge cultivators expected Lu Ye's revenge to come so quickly. From the perspective of the cultivators of the myriad Devil Ridge, he had left the spiritual land and was hiding in the Taimang Mountains. Right now, he must be hiding here and there like a stray dog. What they needed to do now was to constantly search for him, find him, and then kill him. However, in just one night, 4 or 5 teams had already disappeared without a trace. The myriad Demon Ridge cultivators moved in groups of 3 to 5, which greatly facilitated Lu Ye's hunting operations. When he was in the Spirit Stream realm, he had been hunted down many times like this. However, the current him was no longer a Spirit Stream realm cultivator. When he was in the Spirit Stream realm, he hadn't mastered the concealment and aura concealment spirit inscriptions. It was difficult for him to hide his whereabouts under the large-scale search of the enemy. He could only constantly escape and change his position. Now it was different. With the support of the concealment and aura concealment spirit inscriptions, he could use the means of a ghost cultivator as a weapon cultivator. The myriad Demon Ridge cultivators thought he was prey, but in fact, in his opinion, the myriad Demon Ridge cultivators were his prey. In one night, the disappearance of 4 or 5 teams didn't attract too much attention. These myriad Devil Ridge cultivators were mostly with their own sect members or friends. They rarely communicated with others, so even if they disappeared, most people wouldn't know. It was the same for 1 night, 2 nights, and 3 nights. The myriad Demon Ridge finally realized that something was wrong. This was especially true for Song Jue. When he was rousing the cultivators of the myriad Demon Ridge at the entrance of Heaven Returning Valley, many of them exchanged battle marks with him. Every night, a batch of battle marks would disappear. This was clearly not the doing of a monster beast, but someone who had done it. In Taimang Mountain, other than a large number of myriad Demon Ridge cultivators, there was only Lu Yi. Was that guy so powerful? Song Jue did not quite understand. He recalled Ingwuji's last words, telling him to be careful of Lu Ye because the other party was very strong. Song Jue suddenly realized that he seemed to have underestimated Lu Ye all this time. He didn't even know how deep Lu Ye's foundation was. If the disappearance of these myriad Devil Ridge cultivators was caused by Lu Ye, then this person's strength was definitely stronger than he had expected. What annoyed him even more was that he had not been able to find Lu Ye's whereabouts for the past few days. Ever since this guy left Return Sky Valley through the teleportation array, it was as if he had completely evaporated. However, Song Jue knew that Lu Yi was still in Taimang Mountain. If those myriad Demon Ridge cultivators disappeared because of him, then he would definitely continue to act like this. The 4th night came. Song Jue was prepared this time. He deliberately contacted the myriad Demon Ridge cultivators in advance and asked for their location before waiting quietly. When one of the battlefield brands suddenly disappeared, Song Jue immediately soared into the air and rushed in a certain direction. The others followed closely behind him. However, by the time he arrived with his junior brothers and junior sisters, it was already too late. Several corpses were lying on the ground with blood splattered all over. He carefully examined them and found that the fatal wounds on the bodies of the dead were all saber wounds. Judging from the traces left at the scene, the battle did not last long. Such a 4-person team, all of them 6th or 7th order cultivators, was already a good combination. How could Lu Ye, a 5th order cultivator, kill so many people in such a short time? Or did he have some helpers around him? But Wuxia left Return Sky Valley alone. How could he have any helpers around him? There were too many things that Song Jue could not find out. The only thing he knew was that Lu Yi was indeed stronger than he thought. Just as Song Jue was pondering, a stream of light passed by not far away. As if discovering them, the stream of light changed direction and landed in front of them, revealing a person's figure. The person nodded slightly to Song Jue. "Brother Song." "Brother Zizai." The person who came was called Ning Zizai, also a 9th order cultivator from a 2nd grade sect in Yu province. They had met before in Return Sky Valley and had also dealt with Song Jue before, so they were naturally familiar with each other. Chapter 624. "Brother Song, is this Wuxia's doing?" Ning Zizai looked at the corpses on the ground. Song Jue said, "I just arrived, but it looks like it." Ning Zizai asked, "Do you mind if I take a look?" What was there to mind? It was just a few corpses. Song Jue said, "Brother Zizai, help yourself." Ning Zizai squatted down and carefully examined the corpses for a while. He even turned the corpses over and over again. Seeing this, the people behind Song Jue frowned, wondering if this guy had some special fetish. After a long while, Ning Zizai stood up with a thoughtful look on his face. "Brother Zizai, what did you find?" Song Jue asked. Ning Zizai said, "Nothing much, but judging from the injuries, they are no different from the people who died in the past few days. I can be sure that it was done by the same person." "Brother Zizai, have you been examining the corpses for the past few days?" "It's not on purpose. I just happened to come across them, so I took a look." He turned to look at Song Jue. "Brother Song, can you be sure that this was done by Wuxia?" Song Jue thought, "Who would you ask me?" However, he couldn't say that in front of his junior brothers and junior sisters, so he said, "Wuxia uses a saber, and these people died from saber wounds. It's basically him." "I remember that Wuxia is a weapon cultivator." Ning Zizai was full of doubts, but, according to my observation, one of the people who died in each group must have died from a sneak attack from behind. This is a bit like a ghost cultivator's method, so I suspect that Wuxia has some helpers around him. Otherwise, how could he have killed so many people on his own? And that helper must be a powerful ghost cultivator. This happened to coincide with Song Jue's previous doubts. For a moment, both of them felt that Wuxia must have some helpers around him. In fact, Wuxia did have helpers around him, but it wasn't like the two of them thought. His helpers were only Hu Parenti. Song Jue and Ning Zizai chatted casually for a while more before they went their separate ways. They agreed to exchange information if they found anything. As for whether they would exchange information or not, only each of them knew. 4 9th order cultivators like them, if they really found Wuxia, they would definitely kill him immediately. Why would they exchange information with others? After the 5th night, the Myriad Demon Ridge side lost another 2 teams. At the same time, Lu Yi also discovered a problem. There were fewer and fewer targets for him to attack. Lu Yi had killed a lone 8th order cultivator before, so if there were other lone 8th order cultivators, with the 9 spirit array in Yi's hands and her secret help, Lu Yi could easily kill them. However, if this 8th order cultivator had a companion, Lu Yi could only temporarily avoid them. If he could not guarantee that he could escape unscathed, he would definitely not act rashly. Only when he was sure that he had the ability to kill all the enemies in his sight would he launch a sneak attack from the shadows. Currently, the various teams scattered in the depths of Taimeng Mountains were led by 8th order and even 9th order masters, so Lu Yi naturally couldn't touch such a group. As a result, after a few nights of hunting, there were fewer and fewer targets for him to choose from. Moreover, as the number of Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators increased, the surviving Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators became even more vigilant and united. In the first few nights, Lu Yi didn't encounter many teams. The smallest had 2 people, and the largest had 3 or 4 people. He didn't encounter any teams of 5 people. There were even some teams that thought they were acting alone. However, many of the teams he encountered last night had merged into groups of 2 or 3, and the number of people had expanded to 7 to a dozen. Even if there was no 8th order or 9th order cultivator in such a team, Lu Yi didn't dare to provoke them. With his current strength, it wasn't too risky to deal with teams with less than 5 people and no 8th order cultivators, but it was impossible to go beyond this range. Therefore, after a night of hunting, only 2 teams of myriad Devil Ridge cultivators died at his hands, a total of 7 people. Compared to the number of people on the first day, it could be said that the disparity was huge. After a few days of hunting, Lu Yi could finally vent the frustration in his heart. Although he wanted to kill Song Jue and the others, he knew that it was unrealistic. It was time to leave Taimang Mountains. Now that his cultivation wasn't enough, he couldn't always hide here with the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators. A cultivator's cultivation was still mainly focused on improving their cultivation. Although the location of returning spirit land had been exposed, he had left many spirit arrays and heaven's fate pillars in the spirit land. If they encountered any unstoppable danger, 4th senior brother and the others could use the heaven's fate pillars to escape back to the 9 states. Their safety was very guaranteed. Moreover, with the words he left behind before leaving returning spirit land, before he died, which myriad Devil Ridge cultivator would dare to attack returning spirit land? If they attacked today, Lu Yi would return to the Spirit Stream battlefield tomorrow and destroy their sex station. It wasn't that he hadn't done this before. It was precisely because he had done it once that he had such a strong deterrent. The sky was about to brighten. Lu Yi raised his hand and tapped on the battlefield mark, sending a message to Li Baxian, "Senior brother, I'm preparing to leave Taimang Mountains." He had also sent messages to Li Baxian these days, but they didn't talk too much, just simply reporting that he was safe. Li Baxian heaved a long sigh of relief after checking Lu Ye's information in returning spirit land. Although Lu Yi hadn't said much to him these days, he knew that since Lu Yi had stayed in Taimang Mountains, he must be taking revenge on the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators. Now that he heard that he was leaving Taimang Mountains, he was finally relieved. This undoubtedly meant that his junior brother would no longer fight a battle of wits and courage with those myriad Devil Ridge cultivators. Although Lu Yi would definitely be noticed by the myriad Devil Ridge camp after leaving Taimang Mountains, the situation wouldn't be worse than now. To him, Lu Ye's decision to leave Taimang Mountains was undoubtedly a good thing. Be careful. If you're in trouble, think of E. Seeing his senior brother's reply, Lu Yi couldn't help but laugh. Senior brother's words clearly meant that he shouldn't be impulsive. If he died, E would definitely disappear. After ending the message with Li Baxian, Lu Yi sent a message to Giant Armor, telling him to cultivate well in the spirit land and not to run around casually. Before he made any decisions, he should discuss with 4th senior brother or ask him through a message. Giant Armor's reply was simple and clear. There was only one word, okay. The sky was bright, but this didn't affect Lu Yi much. He could cast concealment and aura-concealing spirit runes on himself at any time. Therefore, as long as he was careful enough, he wouldn't be discovered by anyone. Stepping on the road ahead, Lu Yi was filled with helplessness. He was going to be all alone again. Ever since he started cultivating, he had been in this state of being alone most of the time. There was only a period of time in the middle when he moved with Giant Armor, but it didn't last long. After obtaining the grade A Spring Spirit, he placed it in the depths of Taimang Mountains. With 4th senior brother and Feng Yuechan as his companions, he thought that these days would last until he advanced to the true lake stage. However, there were many things that didn't go his way. It had only been a few months, but he had to set off alone again. Thinking back to the short period of time in the spirit land, although everyone usually cultivated separately and didn't interact much, that feeling was different. There was someone by his side. No matter what happened, he had someone to discuss and borrow strength from. Moreover, that person was one of the few people closest to him in this world. Fortunately, although he was always alone, he was never lonely. Because Hu Pei and Yi were always by his side. Today, Lu Yi was extremely glad that he was able to meet Hu Pei, and he was even more glad that he brought the two of them out of Blue Cloud Mountain. Only then could he have 2 companions who would never leave him, grow up with him, and experience all kinds of hardships together. Lu Ye's sudden disappearance made masters like Song Jue and Ning Zizai feel that something was wrong. A few days ago, some people went missing every night in Myriad Demon Ridge, but in the past 2 or 3 days, no one had encountered any more vicious attacks. All signs indicated that Lu Yi seemed to have left. How could the Ninth Order masters who had been looking for Lu Yi without any results be willing to accept this? But what could they do even if they were unwilling? They still couldn't find Lu Yi's whereabouts. Even though they had great strength, they couldn't use it. At this time, Lu Yi had already arrived at the periphery of Taimeng Mountains. It hadn't been easy to travel these past few days, mainly because the further he went, the more myriad Demon Ridge cultivators he encountered. When the news of Lu Yi and returning Heaven Valley's spirit land spread out, too many cultivators rushed over, but some of them weren't strong enough and couldn't go too deep. Moreover, the number of such cultivators was the highest. As a result, the figures of myriad Demon Ridge cultivators could be seen everywhere in the periphery of Taimeng Mountains, and all of them were below the Sixth Order. Lu Yi didn't go and cause more trouble. Since he had made up his mind to leave Taimeng Mountains, he naturally wouldn't expose his whereabouts. As long as he left Taimeng Mountains, he would be able to fly freely in the vast Cloud River battlefield. As long as he wore a mask and hid the amber, no one would be able to find his whereabouts. In the future, when his cultivation reached the 8th Order or 9th Order, he would be able to run amok with his foundation. At that time, if anyone dared to provoke him, he would step on their heads a few times, even if it was shit. As he moved forward, Yi's figures suddenly appeared nearby. Lu Yi's concealment and aura concealment spirit inscriptions had played a role in the past few days, but the biggest reason was Yi. With her scouting ahead, she would be able to detect any movement at the first moment, allowing Lu Yi to avoid a lot of unnecessary trouble. Lu Yi, there's a cave over there. In the past few days, Yi had been responsible for scouting ahead and finding a place to rest. She had deliberately come back to tell Lu Yi this, which undoubtedly meant that the cave was very suitable for resting. Well done, Lu Yi praised. Let's go take a look. Yi's face was brimming with a smile, and she had a complacent expression. Her lithe body fluttered as she led the way forward. After walking a few kilometers, they found a cave. The location was very hidden, and there were weeds as tall as a person growing at the entrance. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't have noticed it. Chapter 625. Walking into the cave and going deeper, Lu Yi gradually noticed that something wasn't quite right. Originally, he thought that this was just a hidden cave that could be used to rest. However, this cave was too deep. Lu Yi pondered for a moment and walked to the side to observe for a while. The rock walls on both sides of the passage had traces of mining, and judging from these traces, it was obvious that they had been here for quite some time. How was this a cave? This was clearly a mine. Lu Yi had been a slave miner in Evil Moon Valley and had been in and out of the mine for many years, so whether this was a mine or not couldn't be hidden from his eyes. Perhaps many years ago, this place contained some valuable minerals, which were then mined away by cultivators. Thus, the mining tunnels left behind by the mining of minerals were left behind. There were many such places in the Cloud River battlefield and even the Spirit Stream battlefield, so it wasn't unusual. Lu Yi didn't have any thoughts about this place. This mine had existed for a long time, and even if there were any valuable minerals in the past, they would have been mined clean long ago, so how could he have a chance? Continuing to go deeper, a few kilometers later, a huge mine suddenly appeared in front of him. This was a very spacious space, a little larger than the space occupied by the Heavenly Spirit Land. Calculating the location, this place was already deep inside the mountain. The minerals that once contained here must be of great value, otherwise, it wouldn't have been emptied out like this. The mine was pitch black, but it didn't prevent Lu Yi from looking around. Looking around the hollowed-out mine, a vague idea suddenly emerged in his mind, and as his thoughts churned, this idea became clearer and clearer. Lu Yi, are we going to rest here tonight? He had already walked around the mine and didn't find anything dangerous, but there were some traces left behind by people. It seemed that someone had discovered this place before and rested here. Although the entrance to this mine was hidden, someone could still find it. No! Lu Yi shook his head. Let's go and give Myriad Demon Ridge a big gift. Originally, Lu Yi had been hunting for several nights in the depths of Taimeng Mountain, killing a lot of myriad Demon Ridge cultivators, some of whom were even 8th Order cultivators. But now, Lu Yi didn't have any other ideas, mainly because he wasn't strong enough. Even if he wanted to, it was useless. So, he decided to leave Taimang Mountain. But after seeing this mine, a plan uncontrollably emerged in his mind. If this plan could be implemented, it would definitely be able to deal a heavy blow to those myriad Devil Ridge cultivators who had been searching for him. This was especially true for a 9th Order cultivator like Song Jue. Lu Yi might not be his opponent in a head-on confrontation, but if he planned properly, he might have a chance to kill him. Just as Lu Yi had thought before, in a place like the Cloudy River battlefield, one had to take revenge as soon as possible. It was best if it was done within the night. Otherwise, if one missed this opportunity, one might not have another chance to take revenge in the future. He turned around and walked out with light steps. Although he didn't know what Lu Yi wanted to do, she could tell from his expression that he was up to no good, so she didn't ask and followed him closely. Lu Ye's preparations took a day. On this day, the cultivators of Myriad Devil Ridge were still searching for him in Taimang Mountain, but they found nothing. Somewhere in Taimang Mountain, several of Song Jue's fellow disciples were resting, while Song Jue was communicating with some cultivators, asking about the situation on their side. After a while, Song Jue sighed. It had been 3 days. In these 3 days, except for a few unlucky cultivators who encountered powerful monster beasts and were killed, the Myriad Devil Ridge side didn't suffer any major losses. All signs indicated that Lu Yi had indeed left Taimang Mountain. Although he was unwilling, there was nothing he could do. Lu Yi had taken the initiative to leave the Spirit Land before, giving them a chance to hunt him down, but they were useless. There were millions of Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators, but they still hadn't seen Lu Ye's shadow. Although he didn't want to admit it, Song Jue knew that this operation was a complete failure. The huge bounty that should have been at his fingertips had flown away under his nose. Now that Lu Yi had left Taimang Mountain, he would definitely be more cautious in the future, and it would be difficult to find him again. Just as he was thinking this, a junior apprentice brother not far away suddenly opened his eyes and raised his hand to touch his battlefield imprint. This was a message. The junior apprentice brother checked for a while, and then his expression changed. He looked up at Song Jue and said, "Senior apprentice brother, I found Lu Yi's whereabouts." Song Jue had already given up looking for Lu Yi, but when he suddenly heard this, he suddenly felt like there was a light at the end of the tunnel. He quickly asked, "Where is he?" "At the periphery of Taimang Mountain, and he seems to be injured. His injuries are not light." The periphery of Taimang Mountain. Song Jue murmured. It was right. In these 3 days, the Myriad Devil Ridge side didn't suffer any more losses. From this, it could be seen that Lu Yi had already left the vicinity 3 days ago, and this time was just right for him to arrive at the periphery of Taimang Mountain. "Let's talk as we go," Song Jue called out, immediately took out his flying spirit weapon, and soared into the sky. He had something he didn't understand. These days, many of them had been searching for Lu Ye's traces, but they had found nothing. How could his whereabouts be exposed at the periphery of Taimang Mountain? While rushing towards the periphery of Taimang Mountain, Song Jue asked about the specific situation. Only then did he learn that it was a coincidence that Lu Ye's whereabouts were exposed. At that time, he was hiding in a hidden cave to rest. As a result, a team of Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators happened to be going to the cave to rest and reorganize. As a result, the two sides bumped into each other. After recognizing Lu Ye's appearance, the Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators were overjoyed and immediately fought with Lu Yi. As a result, Lu Yi ran away. "Wait!" Song Jue raised his hand with a suspicious look on his face. "Lu Yi ran away? Those cultivators didn't die?" "Two died, but Lu Yi seemed to be seriously injured and didn't want to continue fighting, so he ran away in a hurry. Lu Yi could even kill a team of 6th or 7th order cultivators before. Now, the cultivators on the periphery of Taimang Mountain were mixed in strength, but he couldn't kill them all. From this, it could be seen that his injuries were not light. Perhaps it was because he was seriously injured that he decided to leave Taimang Mountain. As a result, no one from Myriad Devil Ridge had been killed in the past 3 days. Song Jue didn't think too deeply about why Lu Yi was seriously injured. After all, Lu Yi had killed so many people before, so it was normal for him to be injured. There were so many Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators on the periphery of Taimang Mountain. It was not an exaggeration to say that there were 10 times more cultivators than there were in the depths of Taimang Mountain. If Lu Yi had been hiding quietly, it wouldn't be a big deal, but once his figure was exposed, it wouldn't be so easy to hide again. After encountering the Myriad Devil Ridge team, he killed 2 people and escaped. After that, he encountered several more teams one after another. After fighting with each other, he disappeared. Disappeared? How did he disappear? Song Jue was stunned. I don't know. The person who sent the message didn't have much information, but what is certain is that Lu Yi didn't leave that area. Now, many people have gathered in that position, looking for him. Faster! Song Jue ordered. The speed of the few people increased a lot, rushing towards the periphery of Taimang Mountain. Since they had already received the news, the other Myriad Devil Ridge experts would probably get the news sooner or later. When the time came, the cultivators searching for Lu Yi in the depths of Taimang Mountain would definitely gather in the periphery. At this time, if they were slow, they might not even be able to eat hot shit. Just as Song Jue expected, at this moment, there were teams setting off from the depths of Taimang Mountain, rushing towards the periphery. In the periphery of Taimang Mountain, where Lu Yi had recently appeared, there were traces of Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators everywhere within a radius of dozens of miles. All of them were searching for Lu Yi's whereabouts. Originally, because their cultivation was insufficient, they couldn't go deep into Taimang Mountain. The matter of killing Lu Yi had nothing to do with them, but now that Lu Yi had run to the periphery and exposed his whereabouts, the opportunity had come. Lu Yi was heavily injured and no one knew where he was hiding. In this situation, whoever could find him first would become rich overnight. The desire for the huge reward made many Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators excited. They spared no effort in searching, but even so, they still couldn't find any trace of him. That was until a small team of 5 appeared. A ghost shadow was incomparably resistant to searching for Lu Yi's whereabouts. It wasn't that he wasn't greedy for the huge reward, but he always felt that he couldn't make an enemy of Lu Yi. Otherwise, he wouldn't have a good ending. Not counting the secret confrontation on the Spirit Stream list, Ghost Shadow and Lu Yi had actually met face-to-face twice. However, the 2 experiences had left a deep impression on him. Every time, the massive, burning sacred beasts of the 4 symbols would appear, and every time, many experts of the Myriad Devil Ridge would perish. The first time was outside the Myriad Poison Forest on the Spirit Stream battlefield, and the second time was in the Cloud River battlefield's hunting ground. Ghost Shadow's talent wasn't ordinary, and he had been ranked 9th on the Spirit Stream list. However, compared to his talent, his intuition was his greatest trump card. His intuition had nothing to do with the strength of his mind. It was more like an innate ability that allowed him to have a strong premonition before danger arrived. By relying on this intuition, Ghost Shadow had avoided many fatal dangers. Take this time as an example. While searching for Lu Yi, his heart was pounding wildly, and he couldn't calm down for a moment. It was as if something very dangerous was about to happen. Although he didn't want to participate in this matter, he couldn't resist the persuasion of his senior brother and his fellow disciples. With no other choice, he could only act with them. If they really encountered any danger with him around, they could at least avoid some of the risks. That was what he thought. Now, he was already a 3rd-order Cloud River Realm cultivator. This cultivation speed wasn't slow, but compared to Lu Yi, it was still far behind. Senior Brother Qin, why are we always circling around here? A female cultivator in the team suddenly asked. This female cultivator was beautiful and had an extremely slim figure. His fellow disciples seemed to be interested in this senior sister but Ghost Shadow wasn't. Women will only affect the speed at which I draw my saber. How can the joy of working hard to cultivate compare to trying to please women? Chapter 626. Senior brother Qin, the leader of the five-man team, looked around and said, I remember there was an abandoned mine nearby. Strange, why can't I find it? Senior marshal sister who said, Did you remember wrongly? Senior marshal brother Qin said, No, when your senior marshal brother Xie was still in the Cloudy River battlefield, he brought me here once. I remember it clearly, it was nearby. The senior marshal brother Xie he mentioned had some impression of him. His cultivation was much higher than theirs. He had already reached the true lake stage and left the Cloudy River battlefield. As senior marshal brother Qin spoke, he led the others down and looked around in confusion. Finally his gaze landed on a spot. He walked forward and pushed aside the tall grass. Then, he gently pressed his hand against the stone wall in front of him. A strange scene appeared. His hand was clearly pressed against the stone wall, but it seemed to have pressed against empty space. When the stone wall rippled, half of his hand was swallowed up. It's really here. This is a concealment array? Senior marshal sister who also saw some clues. In such a place, there was actually a concealment array. This undoubtedly meant that there was something wrong. Moreover, this was the last place Wuxia appeared. An uncontrollable thought suddenly popped up in the minds of the two. The two looked at each other and were shocked. Wuxia was inside. The concealment array at the entrance of the cave was set up by Wuxia. Immediately excited, senior marshal sister who whispered, Senior marshal brother Qin, what do we do? Although they had been looking for Wuxia, there were so many cultivators looking for Wuxia. They didn't think that they could be faster than the others. But luck was hard to explain. They were actually the first to find Wuxia. Although they didn't see Wuxia, there was a concealment array at the entrance of the mine. Anyone could see some clues. Wuxia was now seriously injured and urgently needed to find a hidden and safe place to recuperate. They didn't know how he found this place, hid in it, and then set up a concealment array to block the entrance of the mine. If senior marshal brother Qin hadn't been here before and had some impression of this mine, he wouldn't have found it. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, senior marshal brother Qin waved his hand and said, Let's go. With that, he took the lead and walked towards the stone wall in front of him. As the ripples spread, he disappeared. Senior marshal sister who followed closely behind, and the other three also entered. After entering the mine, the light inside was dim. Under senior marshal brother Qin's lead, they carefully walked forward. After walking less than 300 feet, senior marshal brother Qin, who was at the back of the group's group, and his heart beat violently as if there was great danger ahead. He hurriedly called out, Marshal brother Qin. His voice was not loud, but it was extremely abrupt in this quiet environment. The few of them were already very careful, not even daring to breathe loudly. At this moment, they were all startled by Ghost Shadow's cry. Just as senior brother Qin was about to turn around, a flame suddenly appeared in his field of vision, followed by a violent fluctuation of spiritual power. As he shouted, he quickly retreated, but he was still sent flying by the shockwave, and the group of people behind him rolled into a ball. Cough, cough, cough. In the midst of the dust, the group got up in a sorry state. They saw stars and their eardrums were buzzing. After a while, they slowly recovered. Marshal brother Qin, are you all right? Senior marshal sister who asked anxiously. Cough, cough, I'm fine. Marshal brother Qin clutched his chest. His palm was covered in blood. He was secretly glad that senior marshal brother Qin had called out to him. Otherwise, he would have died. It was because of senior marshal brother Qin's shout that he instinctively stopped and avoided a disaster. Although he was injured, it wasn't a big deal. It's an explosion array. Marshal brother Qin immediately judged. Get out. He was sure that Wuxia was hiding here. Whether it was the concealment array at the entrance or the explosion array in the mine, they were all set up by him. If there was one explosion array, there would be a second one. Now that he had suffered a loss, Marshal brother Qin didn't dare to advance rashly. The group retreated from the mine in a sorry state. But just as they retreated, several figures landed in front of them. Many streams of light were rushing over from all directions. When the explosion array exploded, it caused quite a commotion and attracted a large number of myriad Demon Ridge cultivators who were searching nearby. In just a short while, more than 20 people had gathered here, Marshall Brother Qin sighed. Originally, they were the first to discover Liu Ye's whereabouts and had the opportunity to monopolize everything, but now that the explosion array had been set up in the narrow mine, they had no choice but to retreat. It was foreseeable that the news would soon spread. At that time, more and more cultivators would gather here. Someone came forward to talk to Marshall Brother Qin and asked him what had happened just now. Although Marshall Brother Qin didn't want to say it, he knew that this kind of thing couldn't be hidden. He could only tell them his guess and the information he had at hand. A moment later, the news that Liu Ye was hiding in a mine on the periphery of Great Meng Mountain spread quickly. A large number of cultivators gathered in this location. The cultivators who came at first weren't very strong. They were all below the 6th order. But as time passed, 7th order and 8th order cultivators gradually appeared. After half a day, the first 9th order master appeared in front of the mine. Song Jue and the others didn't come too late. When they received the news, they immediately rushed over, disregarding the consumption of their spirit qi. But when they arrived, they saw that there were cultivators everywhere. There were at least 800 cultivators gathered here, if not 1,000, and the number was still increasing. What made him feel strange was that although there were many cultivators gathered here, they didn't seem to be moving. They were just waiting. There was a faint smell of blood, as if someone was injured. Song Jue saw a few familiar faces and flew straight in the direction of one of them. He landed in front of that person and cupped his fists. Brother Zizai. This person was Ning Zizai, who had met Song Jue in the depths of Great Meng Mountain before. Brother Song is also here. Ning Zizai returned the greeting. What's the situation now? Song Jue asked. Ning Zizai said, we can basically confirm that Liu Ye is hiding inside, but we can't force our way in. But Song Jue was puzzled. Since they were sure that Liu Ye was hiding inside, even if so many myriad demons ridge cultivators rushed in, Liu Ye would undoubtedly die. Inside there is a mine tunnel that winds for several miles. It connects to a hollowed-out mine. Liu Ye left a large number of explosive Dharma formations in that mine tunnel. Some people have already tried to rush in, but they either died or were injured. Even that person over there did not succeed. Ning Zizai pointed in a direction as he spoke. Song Jue turned his head and saw a man sitting cross-legged on the ground. This man's physique was extremely strong. Even if he was sitting cross-legged on the ground, he was only shorter than the nearby cultivators by a head. One could imagine how tall he would be if he stood up. With such a physique, there was no doubt that he was a physique cultivator, and he was definitely an extremely powerful one. However, this physique cultivator was covered in blood and his face was slightly pale. It seemed that his injuries were not light. Wei Zhong. Song Jue's eyes narrowed slightly. Even if he was a cultivator from the first-grade sect, Abyss Rainbow Hall, he did not dare to underestimate this guy named Wei Zhong. Song Jue had some understanding of this person's strength. In a one-on-one fight, he was not confident that he could defeat him. Moreover, he was a physique cultivator, so his physique was incomparably strong. If he was still in such a state after forcing his way into the mine tunnel, the others would definitely end up worse. That narrow space undoubtedly increased the power of the explosion array. Otherwise, it would not have injured a 9th-order physique cultivator like this. Many people had tried to enter the mine tunnel before, but there were casualties every time. After this physique cultivator named Wei Zhong was forced to retreat, no one dared to try again. So now, all the myriad demons ridge cultivators were waiting here. We can't continue like this. Song Jue frowned. Isn't Yanshi here? We can let Yanshi use her creations to explore the path, trigger the array, and clear the obstacles. We've tried, but it's useless. Ning Zizai shook his head. Liu Ye's array is controlled, not triggered. If that was the case, then Yanshi's creations would not be of much use and might even mislead the cultivators. Imagine, the cultivators would think that the creator's creations were safe enough, but when they stepped into the mine, the explosion array would suddenly trigger, causing another batch of deaths and injuries. The current situation was really a bit awkward. Lu Ye was seriously injured and was blocked by many myriad demons ridge cultivators in the mine tunnel, but because of the various arrays he had set up in advance, no one dared to enter at will. They could only be in a stalemate with him. Although there was no need to worry about Lu Ye escaping, delaying like this was not a solution. The longer they delayed, the more the other party's injuries would heal. At that time, it would not be so easy to kill him. As if reading Song Jue's thoughts, Ning Zizai said, "Brother Song, don't worry, someone is already on the way." I wonder if Brother Song has heard of the name Si Nan? Song Jue raised his brow. Si Nan of Cloud Gem Sect? Ning Zizai chuckled. It seems that Brother Song has also heard of him. Song Jue nodded. I've long heard that this generation of Cloud Gem Sect has a genius, but I've never had the chance to meet him. It turns out that he's also nearby. If he comes, he may be able to compete with Lu Ye in the Array Dao. Cloud Gem Sect was a 4th grade sect. However, although there was only a 1-grade difference between 4th grade and 3rd grade, the difference was like heaven and earth. 3rd grade sects had great cultivators in the Divine Sea realm, but 4th grade sects did not. The structure of the cultivation world of the 9 regions and the way of recruiting disciples often led to a phenomenon that was, the stronger the cultivator, the higher the aptitude of the disciples recruited by the more powerful sections. Therefore, for any sect, it was not a simple matter to raise the level of the sect. Chapter 627. This was the way of the world. Often, many 4th grade sects worked hard for more than 10 generations and still might not have a chance to advance to the 3rd grade. The cultivation below the true lake realm was all about the continuous improvement of one's cultivation. As long as one had enough aptitude and resources, it was not too difficult. However, advancing from the true lake realm to the spirit sea realm was a huge hurdle because it involved the transformation of one's divine soul. There were many spirit sea realm cultivators in Jianghu, but they were all accumulated from generation to generation. It was often as difficult as ascending to heaven for a sect below the 3rd grade to have a spirit sea realm cultivator. However, there were exceptions. There were countless sects in Jianghu, and every 3 years, there would be a spirit sea realm cultivator advancing from the 4th grade to the 3rd grade. Every time this happened, it meant that a spirit sea realm cultivator was born in a 4th grade sect. In recent years, the Yunlang sect was the most promising sect to be promoted to the 3rd grade because there was a genius named Si Nan in the sect. He was a Dharma cultivator, but he also cultivated formation Taoism. Moreover, he was very talented in formation Taoism. Some cultivators of the Demon's Ridge once compared him with Lu Yi. They all agreed that among this generation of cultivators, he was the only one who could compete with Lu Yi in formation Taoism. This evaluation naturally fell into Si Nan's ears, but he was dismissive of it. The cultivators of the Demon's Ridge had already placed him in a weak position. What he wanted was not to compete with them, but to surpass them. He was not originally nearby, but had rushed over from a very far place. As early as when the news of Lu Ye's spiritual land was leaked, he had already set off, but the journey was too far, so he had not arrived yet. Now the timing was just right. Lu Yi was trapped in the mine tunnel and needed a powerful formation cultivator to break the formation he had set up. It could be said that he was now carrying all the hope of the Demon's Ridge. This was also one of the reasons why many cultivators of the Demon's Ridge were willing to wait here patiently. Hearing that Si Nan was on the way, Song Jue was relieved and asked, "Who was the first to find out about this?" Ning Zizai pointed his finger. "A few people over there, but they don't know much." Song Jue looked in the direction and saw that there were indeed a few cultivators with low cultivation. One of them seemed to be slightly injured. He immediately nodded and flew over. Senior Brother Qin was very helpless. Ever since more and more myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators rushed here, people kept coming to ask him all kinds of details, such as how they found this mine, how they were sure that Lu Ye was hiding inside. After dealing with wave after wave, there was no end to it. Unfortunately, his cultivation was not high, and he did not dare to offend others, so he could only patiently tell them all the information he knew. At the same time, in the depths of the mine, Lu Yi was refining array flags while keeping an eye on the movements of the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators outside. He was wearing a blood-stained robe. At first glance, he did look like he was seriously injured. However, this was only on the surface. His serious injuries were only a trick he used to confuse the cultivators of the myriad Devil Ridge. The blood on his clothes was indeed his, but it was left behind after his battle with the Fire Prairie. So far, the plan had been going smoothly. Due to his serious injuries, he was unable to hide and was inadvertently discovered by a group of cultivators from the myriad Devil Ridge. He was forced to hide in this mine to recuperate. Then, someone inadvertently discovered traces of a formation here, and his whereabouts were confirmed. Many cultivators from the myriad Devil Ridge surrounded this place. He was now cornered and could only wait for death. Lu Yi, there are so many people outside, who had quietly returned from scouting, reported the situation to him. And there are more and more. It's good to have more people. Lu Yi responded casually, his hands continuing to refine array flags. If he wanted to carry out his plan this time, enough array flags were essential. He asked again, how many ninth order cultivators are there? 5 are here. I saw that guy called Song Zhu. That's about it, Lu Yi nodded slightly. Yi, who was sitting next to him, asked in confusion, Lu Yi, since you want to lure them in, why did you set up so many spirit arrays in the mine? Aren't you afraid of scaring them away? How could I possibly scare them away? Lu Yi laughed. He was now like a ball of honey exuding a charming fragrance, and the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators were like ants that had come searching for the fragrance. No matter how many spirit arrays were set up in the mine, it was impossible to scare them away. The myriad Devil Ridge cultivators would only find ways to rush in. I still think I should have set up fewer spirit arrays. Look, they don't even dare to come in now. Lu Yi said, although the myriad Devil Ridge doesn't know how high my attainments in the spirit array Dao are, they have a rough estimate. If I appear too weak, it will definitely arouse their suspicions. The current situation is just right. Lu Yi wanted to instill in the myriad Devil Ridge with the understanding that he was seriously injured and was relying on the geographical advantage to resist. Only then could he dispel the doubts of some smart people. Besides, I have already held back. Who knew that they would be so useless? Lu Yi cursed in his heart. This was not boasting. Lu Yi had indeed held back when he set up the spirit arrays, mainly because he was afraid that the power of the spirit arrays would erupt too violently and cause the mine to collapse. Now, he had left many explosive spirit arrays in the mine, and although the power they released was fierce, it was not enough to cause the mine to collapse. Of course, the surrounding rock walls would definitely become loose as a result. This was also part of his plan to make it easier to pull in the net when the time came. I'll continue to keep an eye on them, Yi said before burrowing into the ground again and flying out. The convenience of having a spirit body was beyond imagination, and Yi rarely appeared in front of outsiders. The world only knew that Lu Yi had a snow-white little beast with him, but few people knew that in addition to Hu Pe, there was also Yi. Time passed by, and about half a day later, Yi suddenly sent a message saying that a very powerful array cultivator had come from myriad Devil Ridge. Even Song Zhui and the other ninth order cultivators were very enthusiastic about this array cultivator and had now entered the mine to begin cracking the spirit arrays left behind by Lu Yi. It was not that no array cultivators had tried to crack the spirit arrays laid down by Lu Yi before, but those array cultivators' attainments in the spirit array Dao were not high. They failed to crack the spirit arrays and instead suffered some casualties, which led to no array cultivators daring to act rashly. Now, a new array cultivator that Song Zhui and the others were so enthusiastic about had suddenly appeared. Obviously, his background was extraordinary, and Song Zhui and the others had high hopes for him. Sure enough, this array cultivator's attainments in the spirit array Dao were far beyond those of the previous array cultivators, and he easily cracked the explosion spirit arrays. When this news came, Lu Yi could not help but be surprised. Although he had held back when he set up the spirit arrays, he did not expect that there would be an array cultivator at the Cloud River realm who could crack his spirit arrays. He originally thought that myriad Devil Ridge would eventually have no choice but to force their way into the mine. As long as some 8th or 9th order cultivators walked in front with enough protection, they would be able to push forward bit by bit, destroy his spirit arrays completely, and finally kill their way into the mine. But he did not expect that such a person would appear in Myriad Devil Ridge. Sure enough, plans could not keep up with changes. But the impact was not big. When the news that Xi only spent a dozen breaths to dismantle an explosion array spread out, the cultivators of the Myriad Demons Ridge who were waiting outside the mine exclaimed and praised him. Song Jue and the other 9th order cultivators also finally relaxed. Sure enough, a person with a great reputation lived up to his name. Although Xi came from a 4th grade sect, his reputation on the Cloud River battlefield was higher than many cultivators from 1st or 2nd grade sects. Before, they were worried about whether Xinan's attainments in the Spirit Array Dao were enough, but now that there was a successful precedent, their worries were relieved. At this speed, we should be able to kill our way into the mine in less than 2 days. Everyone, what do you think of Brother Xinan's previous proposal? Song Jue asked. He was surrounded by several 9th order cultivators, including Ning Zizai and Wei Zhong. When Xinan came over, he chatted with them for a while. Not only did they get to know each other, but they also made a request. He was responsible for cracking the spirit arrays, but he wanted to take 40% of the reward for killing Lu Yi. He did not ask Song Jue and the others to give an answer immediately because it was unrealistic to expect anything before he showed his abilities. Now that he had shown his abilities, Song Jue and the others had to consider his previous proposal. Ning Zizai said, "I have no objection." He put in a lot of effort, so it's natural for him to take the lion's share. Even without Xinan, the 10,000 Demons Ridge could still force their way in, but there would be a lot of losses. Moreover, the deployment of manpower would be a big problem. Who would rush to the front? Even a 9th order body cultivator like Wei Zhong would be injured if he rushed to the front. The mine tunnel was winding for several miles, so who knew how many explosive arrays Lu Yi had left in it? What about you? Wei Zhong frowned. 40% is a bit too much. Someone else nodded. 40% is indeed a bit too much. 20% is acceptable. Song Jue sighed and said, "You don't seem to understand the main point. Xinan wants 40%, which is indeed a bit much. But do you think that if this matter succeeds, does it make a difference to us whether he wants 40% or 20%? What does Brother Song mean?" Ning Zizai looked at him. Song Jue said, "There are almost 10,000 Demons Ridge cultivators gathered here. After killing Lu Yi, except for the portion that Xinan takes, how are we going to divide the rest? Are we going to divide it equally? This is bound to arouse public anger. When the time comes, all the cultivators who participated in this matter will share the rest of the reward. In fact, there isn't much left for us. Instead, Xinan wants 40%, so what if we give him 40%? I still say the same thing. Compared to the reward on Lu Ye's back, the life and death of this person is more important." Outside returning Heaven Valley, Song Jue had instigated many 10,000 Demons Ridge cultivators to share the reward with everyone just to eliminate Lu Yi, but at that time, he had other plans. He wanted to cooperate with Yingwu Ji to take down Lu Yi. Now that Yingwu Ji was gone, no one would cooperate with him, so there was no need to think about the reward anymore. In that case, he could only take a step back and prioritize killing Lu Yi. As for the rest, it was not important. Chapter 628. After listening to Song Jue's words, several 9th order cultivators understood what he meant. Ning Zizai nodded. Brother Song is right. There are too many fellow Taoists here this time. Whether Xinan takes 40% or 20%, it really doesn't affect us much. In that case, let's do as he says. What do you think? Now they had no objection. They didn't think of this before. Now that the situation was pointed out by Song Jue, they suddenly felt a little bored. Originally, killing Lu Ye was both a matter of fame and profit. But in the current situation, even if they killed Lu Ye in the end, the only thing that the cultivators of the Myriad Devil Ridge would remember would be Xinan's reputation for breaking the formation. All the benefits would go to this guy. He cursed in his heart. Wuxia knows that he has no chance to live, so why did he still arrange so many spirit arrays in the mine tunnel? If you have no objection, I will send someone to inform Sinan. Song Jue motioned to a junior brother next to him as he spoke. The junior brother understood and immediately rushed in the direction of the mine tunnel. After entering, he saw Sinan waiting quietly and didn't continue to break the spirit arrays, so he informed the Ninth Order cultivators of their decision. Sinan smiled, "I know. Please tell these fellow Taoists that I will break all the spirit arrays here within a day and Wuxia will have nowhere to hide." With the promise of several Ninth Order cultivators, Sinan was full of energy and continued to break the spirit arrays. In only half an hour, Sinan had penetrated hundreds of meters into the mine tunnel alone and broken more than a dozen spirit arrays. This was a position that no Myriad Demon's Ridge cultivator had ever penetrated before. Inside the mine tunnel, Sinan kept breaking the spirit arrays. Outside the mine tunnel, many Myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators were looking forward to it. Some of them were more impatient and had been following Sinan, but they didn't dare to get too close. They kept a distance of about 10 meters to observe. They might not be able to see anything, but as they continued to spread the news, the progress of breaking the spirit arrays was also known to the cultivators waiting outside, causing bursts of cheers and exclamations from time to time. Song Jue and the others were still gathered together. The exclamations and cheers coming from time to time made them feel quite uncomfortable. Those voices should have belonged to them, but Sinan had stolen the limelight. Their resentment toward Wuxia grew stronger. At this rate, we can indeed break through all the formations within a day. Amazing! Song Jue could not help but praise. The other Ninth Order masters did not comment. Song Jue laughed. "All right everyone, it's hard for our 10,000 Demons Ridge to produce a talent that can match up to Wuxia. We should be happy. After tomorrow, there will be no more Wuxia in this world, and we can peacefully advance to the true lake stage. The Cloudy River battlefield will also return to its original state, and will no longer be stirred up by one person." Ning Zizai smiled. "Brother Song is still the one who thinks things through." Song Jue said, "Some things can't be changed and can only be accepted, isn't that so?" In the mine, Sinan was breaking the array. In the mine, Wuxia was setting up the array. From time to time, he would check the information sent by Yi, keeping track of the progress of the array cultivator who had suddenly arrived. Ning Zizai had to admit that this array cultivator who had suddenly appeared was really good in the Tao of arrays. He was almost at 70 to 80% of Ning Zizai's level. A large part of his attainments in the Tao of arrays came from the gift of the 100 Array Tower. The other reason was that he was a spirit tattoo master, so he had a natural advantage in the Tao of arrays. Wuxia, on the other hand, had cultivated painstakingly, so it was not easy to compare. Time passed by, and as the spirit arrays in the mine continued to be broken, Sinan's position became deeper and deeper. The 10,000 Demons Ridge cultivators waiting outside also began to rub their palms together. So far, although they could conclude that Wuxia was hiding in the mine, no one had seen him. Whether he was really inside or not, they had to wait for Sinan to break all the spirit arrays before they could verify it. Until a certain moment, a muffled sound suddenly came from the depths of the mine. The violent sound was accompanied by a strong vibration, causing the 10,000 Demons Ridge cultivators waiting outside to change their expressions. "What's going on?" Song Jue and the other Ninth Order masters immediately turned to look in the direction of the mine with a solemn expression. This was clearly a sign that the explosion array had been activated. Did Sinan fail? Such a thought immediately popped up in the minds of these people. If the spirit array had been broken, it would not have been activated. Since it had been activated, it must be because Sinan had failed. There was no need to worry that he would be killed by the explosion. Sinan was an 8th Order cultivator. Even if he was a Dharma cultivator, an explosion array would not kill him. However, injuries were inevitable. As a result, the progress of breaking the spirit array would definitely be delayed. Just as these people were thinking this, a message suddenly came from inside the mine. It was not that Sinan had failed, but that the explosion array had been activated by someone. Obviously, it was the work of the person who arranged the spirit array. As for Sinan, he was unscathed because the spirit array directly exploded when Sinan approached it. This change confused everyone. They did not know what was going on. It sounded like the person who arranged the spirit array wanted to plot against Sinan, but failed to grasp the timing and activated the spirit array in advance. Hong. Another sound came from inside the mine. What happened? The 10,000 demons ridge cultivators, who had just calmed down, became nervous again. Things had developed to this extent, and no one wanted any unexpected changes to happen. However, the sudden explosion undoubtedly worried them. Hong. The third sound. Hong. The fourth sound. Then the fifth sound. There was at least some time between the first few sounds, but the following sounds were continuous and showed no signs of stopping. Even though they had just heard that Sinan was safe and sound, the group of 10,000 demons ridge cultivators was still worried. This kind of movement was clearly caused by the continuous activation of the explosion array. The continuous sound made the stone wall outside shake violently. Soon, news came from inside the mine that Sinan was still safe and sound. All the spirit arrays were activated by the person who arranged them. At this moment, Sinan was striding forward. As he moved forward, many spirit arrays in front of him exploded one after another. This was the source of the movement. At this moment, in the mine, Sinan was strolling leisurely with a disdainful smile on his face. It was rumored that Lu Ye's attainments in Formation Tao were extremely high, but now it seemed that this was not the case. He had cracked many spirit arrays along the way. As long as he was given enough time, he would be able to crack all the spirit arrays. Obviously, the other party had also noticed this, so he directly activated the power of the spirit arrays. Therefore, at this moment, the scene in the mine was that Sinan kept walking forward, and in front of him, the power of the explosion array was constantly being activated. Balls of fire emerged, and from the surrounding rock walls, rubble rustled down. "Is this the end of the road?" Sinan murmured. He secretly guessed that the other party did not do this to kill him, because he knew that it was impossible. Since they didn't want to blow him up, the only possibility was that they wanted to collapse the tunnel in exchange for more time to survive. Combined with the rumor that Lu Ye was seriously injured, Sinan was more and more certain of this conjecture. But how could he give Lu Yi such an opportunity? Song Jue and the others had already promised him that he would get 40% of the reward for killing Lu Yi this time. Although it was just a verbal promise from a few Ninth Order Realm Masters, no one else was qualified to object. Such a huge bounty was of great significance to the sect behind him. As Sinan continued to move forward, the myriad demon ridge cultivators who followed behind him to watch the fun were dazzled and full of admiration. From their point of view, it was as if Sinan was alone, sweeping through all the obstacles in front of him with infinite power. The news in the mine spread. Song Jue and the others were taken aback for a moment before they all rushed towards the mine tunnel. They had thought that it would take at least 1 or 2 days for Sinan to break the tactical matrix, but now it seemed that it would not take long for them to enter the mine. Lu Ye was hiding in the mine. Although no one expected anything from the reward, there was always an end to everything. They had spent a lot of energy and time chasing after Lu Ye. Now that they had reached the final juncture, naturally, no one wanted to miss it. Several Ninth Order Realm Masters led a group of people and quickly rushed into the mine tunnel. Only then did the other myriad demon ridge cultivators react and enter one after another. For a time, the mine tunnel was filled with people. After all, the mine tunnel was not spacious. At most, it could only accommodate 3 to 5 people walking side by side. Naturally, there was no shortage of disputes. For a time, the scene was very lively. From time to time, the panicked cries of some female cultivators could be heard. Obviously, someone had accidentally taken advantage of them. Outside the mine tunnel, Senior Brother Qin, Senior Sister Hu, and the others also hurriedly got up, but before they could move, Ghost Shadow suddenly raised his hand and grabbed Senior Brother Qin's arm while pressing his chest with his other hand. His face suddenly turned pale. "Junior brother?" Senior Brother Qin turned his head to look at Ghost Shadow, wondering why he suddenly became like this. Ghost Shadow raised his head. His eyes were bloodshot and his face was filled with fear, as if he had seen something extremely terrible. He gritted his teeth and said, "Senior brother, you can't go." When they were waiting here before, Ghost Shadow had repeatedly persuaded them not to get involved in this matter because he always had a trace of uneasiness in his heart. In addition, this matter involved Lu Yi. The few times he had interacted with Lu Yi, they were all accompanied by great risks. This made Ghost Shadow even more certain that something was wrong this time. But how could Senior Brother Qin, Senior Sister Hu, and the others be willing to not participate in such a grand event? Besides, it was their team that discovered Lu Ye's whereabouts. No matter what, they should be able to get a share of the reward after killing Lu Yi. If they shrank back at this time, they would get nothing. Therefore, even if Ghost Shadow had persuaded them before, Senior Brother Qin and the others did not take it to heart. In their opinion, Lu Ye was dead for sure with more than 20 million Devil Ridge cultivators gathered here. They might not be able to do much, but it was not a problem to join in the fun. Until now. Chapter 629. Coming from the same sect, Senior Brother Qin and the others had some understanding of Ghost Shadow's abilities. This Ghost Cultivator Junior Brother had a perception of hidden dangers that ordinary people couldn't compare to. Take the previous encounter in the mine as an example. If Ghost Shadow hadn't suddenly sensed it and warned them in time, Senior Brother Qin, who was walking at the front, wouldn't have just suffered light injuries. "What did you sense?" Senior Brother Qin asked. Ghost Shadow's eyes turned even redder. He shook his head and said, "I don't know, but it's very dangerous." Ever since he had started cultivating, this talent had allowed him to avoid many fatal dangers. In the Spirit Stream battlefield, in the Myriad Poisons Forest, and in the Cloud River battlefield, Ghost Shadow had always sensed danger ahead of time and promptly left. Reality had proven that it was precisely this caution that had allowed him to avoid calamities time and time again, allowing him to use his meager cultivation to turn danger into safety time and time again. Those who liked to join in on the fun, those who enjoyed watching a show, and those who had a higher cultivation than him, had long since died. But there had never been a time when Ghost Shadow felt such a strong sense of danger in his heart. This made him faintly feel that if they really entered the mine, the danger this time would be more dangerous than any of the previous times. Senior Brother Qin was still hesitating, and Senior Sister Hu was also indecisive. Ghost Shadow advised, "Senior Brother, there are so many people involved this time. Even if we succeed in the end, we won't get much of the benefits. It's not worth taking the risk for that little bit of benefit. Even if I'm wrong, we'll only lose a little bit of resources. But what if I'm right?" If he was right, then it was equivalent to avoiding a disaster in advance. These words undoubtedly moved Senior Brother Qin. He patted Ghost Shadow's hand and nodded. "All right, then we'll wait outside." Ghost Shadow let out a sigh of relief. To be honest, if Senior Brother Qin didn't listen to his advice and insisted on going in, he really didn't have any good ideas. At most, he could only ensure that he didn't participate in this matter. He couldn't force others to do anything, even if they were fellow disciples. Fortunately, this senior brother of his was also willing to listen to others' advice. Senior Sister Hu said, "Should we also warn them?" Senior Brother Qin shook his head. Who would believe that? The myriad Demon Ridge cultivators gathered here were like cats that had smelled blood. They swarmed into the tunnel. It was fine if they didn't go in, but if they reminded others now, they would only be mocked. Others might even think that they had ulterior motives. The number of cultivators outside became fewer and fewer. In the end, only Senior Brother Qin's group of 5 remained. The originally noisy environment suddenly became quiet, making people feel a little uncomfortable. The dull sounds continued to come from the depths of the mine tunnel. Song Jue and the others had caught up with Si Nan, who was walking in the front, and saw the amazing scene. Si Nan kept walking forward. In front of him, explosive tactical deployments were constantly activated, which made the surrounding rock walls loose and gravel rustle down. They immediately came to the same conclusion as Si Nan. The person who set up the formation clearly realized that the formation he had set up could no longer stop Si Nan, So he wanted to use these formations to blow up the mine tunnel and buy himself some time. However, the power of this tactical deployment was not enough. Therefore, although the mine tunnel was now full of gravel, it was still stable. As long as there was no more external force, it would not collapse in a short time. Besides, even if one part of the tunnel collapsed, it would not be a big deal. All the cultivators present were at the Cloud River realm. As long as they were not buried alive on the spot, they would not be in any danger. As long as they spent some time and energy, they would eventually clear the tunnel. After a few miles of winding mine tunnel, there was finally an end. When the buzzing of the explosive tactical deployment stopped, and the last ball of fire was annihilated, a hollowed-out mine appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Sinan was the first to step in, followed by Song Jue and the others. Behind them, there was an endless stream of cultivators from the myriad Demon Ridge. The mine tunnel was pitch black, but Song Jue and the others still felt a familiar aura at once. They all raised their eyes and looked in that direction. Someone cast a spell. The spell was not very destructive, but it was incomparably bright. It slowly rose into the air, like a rising sun. Under the cover of the light, the situation of the entire mine tunnel was clear at a glance. The mine tunnel was full of miscellaneous stones, and the space was not small. In the deepest part of the mine tunnel, a figure was sitting cross-legged, wearing a blood-red robe. The blood on the robe had long dried up, making the blood-red robe hard. He sat there quietly, looking at the group of uninvited guests who had suddenly rushed in. "Luya!" A low shout came from the crowd, and there was an urgent commotion. Although many cultivators from the myriad Demon Ridge could basically conclude that the person hiding here was Luya, after all, no one had seen him with their own eyes. At this moment, the person they had been thinking about finally appeared in their field of vision. As soon as the voice fell, streams of spells and imperial tools broke through the space and attacked Luya. However, the distance was still too far. Although Luya's position was within their attack range, the power of the attacks had been greatly reduced by the time they reached Luya. A layer of light curtains suddenly appeared in front of Luya. It was a protective array. The weakened spells and imperial tools hit the protective array, and layers of ripples spread out, but they could not hurt him at all. They could not even break the protective array. The cultivators who attacked were full of unwillingness. They finally understood why Luya was hiding so far away. Someone shouted angrily, "Luya, come and die." Someone also shouted, "Luya, let's see where you can run this time." In such a closed environment, with such a great disparity in strength, in anyone's opinion, Luya had no hope of escaping unless he could ask the Tianji Pillar again and use its power to escape back to the 9 provinces. However, at this moment, there was no trace of the Tianji Pillar beside Luya. However, these people only shouted and did not dare to act rashly. Luya had set up so many arrays in the mine tunnel before. Who knew if there were any arrays in this mine tunnel? There must be. Before the arrays were broken, no one dared to act rashly. Song Jue leaned over to Sinan and whispered, "Brother Sinan, Luya can set up a teleportation array. Can you see if there is one around him?" Back in Huitian Valley, Luya used a teleportation array to leave. Although there was no such thing as the Tianji Pillar, if Luya set up a teleportation array here in advance, he could still escape. However, this possibility was not high. According to the information he received, Luya inadvertently exposed his whereabouts and hid here to heal. There was no reason for him to set up a teleportation array, unless he had foreseen this scene and set up a backup plan in advance. Sinan looked carefully. After a while, he shook his head and said, "I don't see any traces of a teleportation array, but we can't rule out the possibility that the other party deliberately concealed it." They were a little far away, so Sinan could not see too clearly. Song Jue said, "At this time, if he really set up a teleportation array, he must have used it to escape. There is no need to hide it. Since we didn't see it, it must not be there." In such a desperate situation, Luya was going to die in the end. It was a pity that Ingwuji failed in Huitian Valley. Otherwise, he would not have to worry about his cultivation resources in the future. It won't be easy to kill him. He has set up many arrays in this mine. Are you waiting for me to break the arrays or attack? Sinan asked. A trace of doubt suddenly appeared in his heart. Logically speaking, if the other party really wanted to resist stubbornly, the location of the mine entrance was the most suitable place to set up an array. However, in fact, there was no array left at the entrance of the mine. It was as if the other party had deliberately left a place for the myriad demons' ridge cultivators to have a foothold. However, Sinan did not think too much about this matter. He just thought that the other party did not have enough array flags. In the mine tunnel, the other party had set up too many arrays, so the number of array flags consumed must be huge. At this moment, there were still a steady stream of myriad demons' ridge cultivators coming out of the mine tunnel and stepping into the mine. After all, there were nearly 2,000 people in the mine tunnel, so it would take some time for all of them to come in. Song Jue said, breaking the array is safe, but it will take a long time. Lu Ye is treacherous, so this matter should not be delayed for too long. What do you think? The last sentence was directed to the other Ninth Order realm cultivators. Ning Zizai said, Brother Song, you can make the decision. Wei Zhong and the other two Ninth Order realm cultivators had no opinion. Song Jue nodded, then let's attack. In this way, although there might be some casualties as long as they were careful enough, there should not be too much of a problem. With this in mind, Song Jue raised his arms and shouted, Fellow Taoists, Lu Ye is right in front. If you want to share the bounty, follow me to break his array and take his life. Saying so, he took the lead and attacked the empty space in front of him. He really couldn't break the array like Sinan, nor could he see where the array was, but as long as he maintained enough power, he could flatten everything in front of him. Naturally, the hidden array wouldn't be able to play any role. He couldn't do it alone, but if all the myriad demons' ridge cultivators worked together, no matter how many arrays Lu Ye had set up here, they would eventually be destroyed. As Song Jue took action, many myriad demons' ridge cultivators also took action. For a time, the spirit chi in the mine was in chaos, and colorful lights constantly bloomed. The blooming spirit chi plowed the ground in front of them over and over again, and all the hidden arrays were forcibly broken before they could be activated. There were also some impatient myriad demon ridge cultivators who leapt up, wanting to fly over and kill Lu Ye. However, before they could even reach 30 feet, a massive pressure descended from the sky, suffocating them. Shockingly, there was also a forbidden space formation set up within the mine. Thunderous rumbling filled the air. The cultivators of the myriad demon ridge rushed into the mine in an arc, constantly attacking and pushing forwards. Bit by bit, they closed in on Lu Ye's direction, bringing with them an aura that left one filled with despair. To be continued, that you're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.